regular meeting of the River Ridge Municipal Land Use Board will come to order at 7:40 p.m. Sorry for the slight delay, folks, but we had the, we can always blame it on the lawyers, and that was the real reason. Councilman, would you like to lead us in the salute to the flag, please?
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Adequate notice of this public hearing has been made by sending notice to the record and by positioning on the bulletin board in the lobby of Borough Hall and filing a notice of the same with the municipal clerk. Everybody is reminded that there are 3 fire exits in this room, one in the rear and one on either side of the dais here. The roll call, please.
Councilman Papaleo?
Here.
Sherry Kellyan is absent. Ms. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Bartoloni is absent. Mr. Merman?
Here.
Mr. Grasso?
Here.
Mr. Craig?
Here.
Mr. Caslin is absent. Mayor Mignon is not yet here. Mr. Gibbons is absent. And Mr. Sideris is absent. Forget someone?
1, 2, 3, 4. You should have 5 yeses. 5 years.
Okay, we're good.
Okay, we're good. That's good. All right. Should it be necessary, there'll be a 10:30 curfew tonight. There's a possibility that tonight's business might take us beyond that. So you're noticed. Approval of the minutes. I think we're going to postpone that once again. They were very lengthy, and I would like to see more of the board members contribute to, because it was an important set of minutes. Okay, now we're going to have a completeness review of individual applications. The first one is Mary Alfano on 915 Popular Avenue. Would you come up? I know that. I know we have a. You can sit down, make yourself comfortable. We're friendly. Do you have to swear in first or anything? No. Can you briefly explain your application? And we're just going to review the documents that you submitted. If we declare them acceptable, then later on we will have the public hearing, just so you know where we're going. So, for the record, state your name and address, and then you can tell us briefly of what you plan to do.
Mary Alfano.
Move the microphone up a little bit. Thank you.
Mary Alfano, 915 Poplar Avenue, River Edge, New Jersey, 07661.
Councilor Chair, I've had the opportunity to review the notice that was sent in, that was published and served by Ms. Alfano. Unfortunately, Ms. Alfano, the notice that you published in the newspaper is deficient. And what I mean by that is there's certain minimum requirements that have to be in the notice, and unfortunately your notice doesn't have that information in there. I just want to point out 2 things. Typically, when you notice for a public hearing, you have to identify the body that you're appearing in front of. So in this case, it would be the Municipal Land Use Board. There's also a sample form of notice that my firm prepared and sent over to the Land Use Secretary. My recommendation would be that you strictly follow that form of notice next time that you publish it, so that you can avoid this situation again.
We're sorry about that, but
Thank you.
it's the procedures. Thank you. Yes, yes. second application for completeness, Sugarman Chicken, 626 Kindercomack Road. And it looks like Mr. Barrett's representing them.
I am, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My client is here. This is really, an application required under your ordinance because a food handler's license is required, hence site plan approval. The applicant intends, with your permission, to occupy the space formerly occupied by La Toscana. The only changes that are taking place are the name, the type of food, and the owner of the restaurant. Nothing else is changing.
Okay. Have you reviewed the mailings and so forth?
I have, Mr. Merman, and I find that this board has jurisdiction. The notice that was published and served does meet the minimum requirements of the municipal land use law.
Okay, so it sounds like you're good to go.
Thank you.
Don't go too far.
I'm not.
The third one for completeness is Bergen County Historical Society.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thomas J. Barrett for the applicant. This is an application to erect a 2,331 square foot building to house a museum, an assembly space, a library, and for the storage of artifacts. It will become the primary building on the site. And I have with me tonight the officers of the Historical Society, which is the owners of the property. We have our engineer, our landscape architect, and our traffic engineer.
Okay. Have you reviewed the application?
I have, Mr. Merman. Now, Counselor and I have been in touch prior to tonight's hearing on a couple of occasions. I know that Counselor has published and served new notice. One question did arise today, and I would like to have Mr. Barron's weigh in. The issue is whether or not, now that you're going to have multiple buildings on the one lot, whether that triggers a D variance. Now, at the beginning, before this meeting started, I did speak with Mr. Barron's, and Mr. Barron's, I have a question for you. Do you feel that given the fact that there are multiple uses or buildings on this lot, will that trigger a D variance in your opinion?
In this case, I don't believe that it does. As Mr. Barrett said, I believe the new building, the new larger museum building will serve as the principal building, and those smaller structures will be accessory to that, and the site will continue to function as a historical museum site, as it has been.
Now, Counselor, you do understand, even if this board takes jurisdiction, and if a challenge later ensues, it's your client's risk.
Yes, we understand.
And your client still would like to proceed.
That's correct.
That's it?
That's it. I did review the notice the Counselor published and served. It does identify the bulk variances that the applicant is seeking. Assuming a D variance is not implicated here, it's my opinion that this board has jurisdiction.
Okay. So we're going to move on to new business. Don't go away, Mr. Barrett. You're going to get your other file. Okay. Let's have a vote on the completeness of the two applications. The Chumanga Chicken and the Bergen County Historical Society. Let's take the chicken for completeness.
For completeness, but if you could separate them, because I'm going to recuse myself on the
Okay, yeah.
so do them separately.
Okay, let's do the chicken one first. It's the order of...
Move to accept as complete.
Well, okay, well, please have the record note that we do have a recusal. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Fine, okay. Now let's move
I
on
recuse myself.
to...
You're welcome.
Let's move on to the County Historical Society. A motion for completeness?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Bowen. Seconds? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now, here we are, Mr. Barrett. So this is the application for the, I'm gonna slaughter this name only. The, Chungaman chicken?
Chungman.
Excuse me?
Chungman.
Chungman, okay, I'm correct, all right. Let the record show that, the mayor has joined the board at 7:51. Welcome. We're just moving on to the hearing for the chicken application. Okay, Mr. Barrett, proceed.
All right, the couple that are sitting to my left, the restaurant will actually be operated by Mr. Na, and his wife is with him tonight to interpret.
Okay.
Because Mr. Na has command of the English language, but is more comfortable in some instances with having his wife interpret for him. So I believe that you would want to swear both of them in at this point in time.
Please raise your right hand.
Did you say
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
she can interpret?
And, Ms. Na, I have a question for you, independent of your husband. You swear or affirm that the transcription that you're going to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you. So you've entered into a lease for the premises at 626 Kinderconnect Road? You have to answer because they can't record just a nod of the head.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is the site formerly occupied by La Toscana? And you intend, initially at least, to sell and to prepare and to sell chicken. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. Do you intend to make any changes to the site itself, the outside of the building, or the parking or anything? Are there going to be any changes?
Yeah. No change.
No change?
Yeah.
Right. And to the interior, other than replacing some of the equipment, are you going to make any changes to the interior?
No change.
So everything's going to be the same as it was when it was La Toscana, other than the fact that you're going to run it, you're going to serve chicken rather than pizza and Italian food, and you're going to change the name.
Yes.
No further questions at this point.
Okay. Just for the record, Mr. Barrett, is going to be both sit down, takeout,
That's correct.
and delivery, I believe.
That is correct.
Okay.
And perhaps I can offer a little more clarity. How much of your business do you think will be takeout or delivery?
Maybe 80%? Yeah, 80%.
Okay, 80% will be,
The takeout or delivery?
okay.
And with respect, now this just triggered a few more questions. With respect to your deliveries to the site, how do you intend to get the product to the site?
Supplies.
Yeah, I'm going to do my...
You're gonna buy the food and bring it back
Yes.
yourself? So at this point, you don't plan for any delivery trucks or anything of that nature?
All right. So the applicant states that delivery of supplies and all will be by him personally rather than truck
Right.
delivery, so we don't really need to consider a truck spot.
Right.
Okay.
And then your anticipated hours are 11 a.m. to either 10 or 11 p.m., 7 days a week?
Yes.
And it's my understanding that besides yourself, you'll have either 2 or 3 employees, depending on the day of the week,
Yes,
and that includes a delivery person.
yes.
Now I think
You're okay? All set? Okay. Can we hear from the planner, please, on this application?
As you've heard so far, there does not appear to be any site modifications. The particular space has been occupied by a number of restaurants in the past. The applicants testified that they're keeping the same number of seats, which they've said is 30, which was the former Pizzeria La Toscana. I don't have direct confirmation of that, but that's not to say that that's not the case. That's their testimony, so
Okay.
that would be the case moving forward. La Toscana had been approved some number of years ago, and effectively there are a number of pre-existing non-conforming conditions, none of which are being exacerbated and which have been approved in the past, so it does seem to be a technical formality in terms of changing tenants at this point. It may be fair to ask about whether or not there's striping in the back, if that's adequate at this point in time.
Are the spaces in the rear delineated with any striping?
I would suggest that the applicant, we ask the landlord to restripe both front
And back?
and rear parking, and particularly upgrade the handicap spot so it's more visible. And I must remind the board that the applicant is really here for a food handler's license, and that automatically triggers a site review. All right. So, Mr. Barons, you really have no problems with this applicant,
As I
since
said,
it's basically a mirror image of what was there.
That's what's being presented tonight.
Okay. Board members, let's start with the councilman, full rank.
No, I'm good. No questions at this time.
Ms. Bowe?
There's no information on signage that will be conforming.
Yes, whatever's there now, just a different name.
Other end?
You said there'll be one delivery person?
Self.
Just one, or might there be 2?
There's one there.
Just one.
If it grows, it could be 2.
So if business improves, you might add an additional delivery person? Yes, if business improves.
I do have one more thing to add. As we've asked with similar tenants, there'll be no overnight storage of vehicles, commercial vehicles.
So you're not going to have a commercial vehicle with the name of the business or anything on it, right?
Overnight.
No overnight parking.
No overnight parking.
Okay.
I guess the same question about the deliveries of supplies. If the business grows, do you anticipate having to have truck deliveries? I mean, right now, you're going to bring it in your personal vehicle, I'm assuming, but if your business grows, are you going to be using...
How are we doing? Okay.
It'll still be in his vehicle?
No truck is additional.
Okay. Okay. I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
It's not for the applicant. There has been some building, property maintenance issues at this location, and I think as a condition of approval, we need to make sure that those have been adequately addressed and everything is okay with regard to our building department. I don't know if there's any other site deficiencies, Mr. Barron. Are you aware of anything like fencing or anything that might need to be
As
addressed?
far as I'm aware, I guess we'll call it the rear lot line that's adjacent to the side lot line that's adjacent to the single-family home down Madison appears to have adequate fencing.
And also the parking layout does not seem very regular.
That's true.
So they might, when they restripe, I think Mr. Costa has to go out there and make sure that these are safe spaces. They're at all kinds of angles and there's no aisle. So,
There's no connection to the property.
yeah.
So it's dead, I mean, it's a
It's a
dead
dead
end.
end with angular parking. And no one ever parks back there, from what I know, to go to the front anyway. So,
Yeah, the only ones would be the employees,
Tenants.
typically the employees.
and the tenants, yeah.
That's why we have a mall across the street.
We've been through that. That's all.
Any other questions? Okay. I think you folks pretty well covered them. Let's have a motion to open it to the audience, please, to the public.
So moved. Second.
Okay. This part of the meeting, the public can make comments on this application. And what we're gonna do is start in the front row and move back each row, so we got some order here. We'll start in the front row over on my right. Nothing? Nothing? Okay, it's the whole front row. The second row, nothing back there next to you? No? Go right on across. Anybody on the second row? No? Third row? No, I don't see anything. Okay, the row behind that? Hey, we're batting 1,000. Look at that. The final row, I guess it is, back there. Any comments? Okay. Boy, we should have this all the time. Not hearing any public comments, I'll entertain a motion to close it to the public.
So moved. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I guess we're ready for a motion.
May I,
Oh,
Mr.
sure.
Chairman, make a suggestion? I took down certain conditions. I just want to make sure that they are in accordance with the board's desires. The first is that Mr. Barrett, the applicant, well, really not the applicant, but the landlord will restripe the front and rear parking lot, correct? And then the handicap spot as well?
Right.
Okay. No overnight parking of commercial vehicles. Any site deficiencies are to be addressed to the reasonable satisfaction of the board engineer by the landlord. And Mr. Costa, I believe the mayor has asked that you're going to make sure that the spaces are safe once they're restriped. Is there anything, board members, that I may
Another
have missed?
question. Mr. Costa, do you think it'd be prudent to TV the sewer lateral, just since we've had the restaurant there?
We probably should.
TV the sewer lateral?
Yeah, especially the breeze here.
Now, Mr. Barrett, to the extent that you can, does the applicant understand and agree to these conditions?
They want someone to come in and drop the TV into the sewer. And
How can we enforce these getting out in an orderly fashion? How can we? Yeah, I don't want to hold it on him, but.
Yes, the clients will speak to the landlord about both the TV and the sewer lateral, because we're not sure whether both sets of buildings are serviced by the same sewer or not.
What's that?
I think both, I don't know if both buildings use the same sewer.
In the back, oh, okay, I don't know.
At one point I knew where that was.
But
Basically because it was a restaurant, prior to this,
Right.
just to make sure that the restraps are adequate and the lateral is.
Okay, so we'll work with you to get that accomplished.
Well, the landlord's very easy to deal with.
Right.
Shouldn't be an issue.
Well, now that Mr. Acosta has said that, we've been here before with other similar type of applications. How do we guarantee, or how does this board guarantee, or how do you guarantee if the landlord will comply with conditions that pertain to the landlord? And I guess my question is, have you had a discussion with the landlord at all?
Regarding this, no, other than getting his consent to making the application. But we'll have a conversation.
Mr. Barrett, along those lines of making sure that these get done, can we have an understanding that in a period of time, if nothing is accomplished by the landlord, that the borough will be taking other action?
understood.
Okay, so let's call that other time, is 3 months fair?
Yeah, what else is there that needs to be done,
Well, basically, we just named it.
Oh, well, that's fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Oh, those items?
Yeah.
No, but there was some general comment about,
Well, there were issues with the building department. I just
Building
wanna make sure
are there
that-
outstanding issues?
Well, I don't know if they're still outstanding, but they're had.
Oh,
they're
okay,
violated.
I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that. Okay, so he's got to clear up his violation?
Right, okay?
Okay.
All right.
3 months?
Let's call it 3 months is fair.
So 3 months to satisfy the conditions?
The site conditions, correct, yeah.
Okay.
Any additions by board members to the motion? Okay, so can you read that
I'll try.
over again?
I'll try.
Okay,
Try.
give me a good hit.
The landlord is to restripe the front and rear parking lot as well as the handicap spot. There will not be any overnight parking of commercial vehicles. The third condition is any and all site deficiencies are to be addressed by the landlord to the reasonable satisfaction of the board and the board engineer. Mr. Costa is to ensure that the parking spaces are safe once they are restriped, and the applicant, or rather I should say the landlord, shall TD the sewer lateral. And Mr. Barrett, these site conditions are to be addressed within 3 months from the date of the adoption of the memorializing resolution. Is that okay with the board?
Okay, does anybody want to second that motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Moved by Councilman Papalayo.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, who moved it?
No, we moved it.
You moved it. Councilman Papalayo, do we have a second?
Second.
Understood.
We all set? Move and second? Okay,
Moved in second.
all right.
Councilman
Roll call.
Papalayo? Councilman Papalayo?
Correct? Yes.
Ms. Boland?
Yes.
Mr. Merman?
Yes,
Mr. Grasso recused himself. Mr. Cray?
Yes?
And Mayor Mignon.
Yes.
welcome to River Ridge.
And if possible, my clients would appreciate it if it could be memorialized at the next meeting. They signed a lease,
Okay,
which has already taken effect, and unfortunately it was not contingent on this approval. They weren't
Okay.
aware of the requirement. And so they're paying rent on a space they can't currently use.
I think our wheels can move accordingly.
We would appreciate it.
I would hope. Okay, thank you. Once again, welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, good one.
I took your plan, by the way.
I know you did.
I
know you did. You notice I kept my hand on my wallet. Oh, we did. I got a couple of these.
One of these days, I want to go out without putting red wells.
You have a full, both of them.
They aren't on this set? They're on the other set, I don't have them. You all set? Okay, we're now going to hear the oil application. We're moving right along here, Mr. Barrett. Yeah, we might not need a curfew. All right. Bergen County Historical Society, 1201 and 1209 Main Street, River Ridge, is being represented by Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're going to start out tonight with the officers of the Bergen County Historical Society, which is a non-profit corporation, and I'm going to allow them to, because they can do it much better than I, describe the current uses of the site, the proposed uses, as well as the interconnection of the Historical Society and the historic Newbridge Landing State Park Commission. So at this point, and it's going to be interchangeable, I have with me Jim Smith, who's the president of the Historical Society, as well as the chairman of the State Park Commission, and Deborah Powell, who's the commissioner of the State Park Commission, as well as past president of the Historical Society. And then we also have Mary Donahue, who is the vice chairman of the State Park Commission. I don't believe Mary's going to testify necessarily at this point, but you may want to swear me in right now.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please each state your name for the record.
James Smith.
Deborah Powell.
Mary Donahue.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Smith, if you want to start and tell us what the uses are, what the vision is.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Barrett. And thank you very much, everybody, for allowing us to present here today. Good evening. My name is James Smith, and I'm the current president of the Bergen County Historical Society. I'm excited to be here today to represent our organization at this momentous occasion. The Bergen County Historical Society was founded in 1902 to preserve and promote Bergen County's rich history as a whole from its original inhabitants, the colonial period, to today. We are a 501c3 organization, and no one here receives a salary. From its beginning, members of our organization recognized the rich and storied histories that exist within our county, and they got started right away beginning to collect artifacts and securing museum space at the Johnson Library in Hackensack, New Jersey, with Senator Johnson being a founding member of our organization. In 1926, the Bergen County Historical Society began working with the state of New Jersey to protect and acquire the von Steuben House and preserve it for future generations. After its purchase, the Society was invited by the state of New Jersey to make the von Steuben House a state historic site, our home, in 1939. Yet we weren't done yet. The site continued to be threatened by an ever-expanding auto parts yard, and the Society began purchasing the surrounding property to preserve the house and surrounding property and preserving this Revolutionary War battleground. With the post-war boom and a four-lane road also threatening the site, the Society sold for $1 the area that would become Newbridge Road to the County of Bergen. As the Society's collections expanded, so did historic Newbridge Landing, with the addition of the Demarest House, Thomas Westervelt Barn, in 1955. As early as 1965, plans were in the works to construct a museum building, but those plans changed with the Campbell Christie House being moved in 1977 to the site. As the site expanded, the former Pizza Town lot was added for additional parking for the site. The parking lot that the Historical Society donated to the state of New Jersey for the Steuben House was removed, replaced with a turnaround to improve visitors' experience and remove drive-up history. And the junkyard was also removed thanks to the efforts of many, which has now been replaced by a green meadow. Much of this was also done through the historic Newbridge Landing State Park Commission. Due to funding that the Park Commission has now received, thanks to the support of many, additional improvements are already being planned to the site as a whole. We're very excited about that moving forward. When we look at the status of museums and historic sites today, we understand what we need to do. The days of house museums are pretty much gone. Artifacts need to be preserved and displayed in safe and secure places. Secondly, the structure will add much-needed ADA bathrooms that could be accessed even when only certain buildings are open. 3, the structure provides a great jumping-off point for the visitor as they begin their journey back to the historic core of the site, the von Steuben House. 4, people love the experience of visiting the historic site in River Edge, and we're excited to continue to help educate the diverse crowds from all over Bergen County, the state of New Jersey, and beyond to this complex history, again, in our own backyards in River Edge. And finally, the visitor experience. We want to provide an authentic experience with a structure that can blend in to the surrounding structures, but has the amenities for visitors and artifacts alike, so that people today and generations tomorrow can enjoy the rich history of our county as a whole. People want to feel the past, to touch it, with reduced modern intrusions, and that's what this building will do. The original home of Bergen County's first peoples, 11 military engagements during the American Revolution, a historic destination for our state, and with the addition of our primary museum building, a proper 21st century green structure that will help tell an amazing multi-layered story here in Bergen County. This structure will look the part of blending in with the green surroundings of historic Ridge Landing, but provide the ideal environment for visitors. The deck area will become a gathering place for our varied events throughout the year, with steps serving almost like an amphitheater for outdoor lectures. Accessible ADA bathrooms and meeting space will not only benefit the site and society, but will allow for the full restoration of Von Steuben House, a state historic site that has never been done. Thank you for your support, and I ask everyone to join us as we, not me, we are the generation that will make history and construct the first museum dedicated to fully telling the story of Bergen County, right here in River Edge, New Jersey. Thank you.
So, what typically goes on in the course of a month or 2 months at the site?
Well, we have events, regularly programmed events, pretty ambitious events throughout, opening up the whole site with 25 to 35 volunteers and historians. Can you hear me all? And so it's, it's pretty, 3 sandstone houses, a barn, out kitchen where we have demonstration cooking, and then walking tours of the bridge, the 1889 bridge, which replaced the 1744 bridge, the original bridge, and why they prospered at the site. So we have lectures in the evening, and we have, as I said before to Tom, we have many meetings. We love meetings, so we have a meeting almost every night, it seems like.
And how do you handle larger events? I've noticed advertisements and aware of the fact that
Well,
reenactments.
when we have a fairly large event, like for vintage baseball, say, or Barron Fest, well, Barron Fest is kind of borderline, but for vintage baseball, we hire a parking attendant company who will park cars efficiently and move people efficiently through the parking lot on the plan there, you see. So that's one way. And then for a really large event in the past, like Barron Fest, we have gotten parking at the New Jersey Transit lot. We had to take out additional insurance, so it's like kind of, a stumbling block. But you have to weigh making money or not. And we do all our functions through either fundraising, donations, or membership. So that's how we make things happen.
And I know there was a concern, or one of the comments on Mr. Costa's letter was, how do you deal with garbage or with recycling?
So we are a carry-in, carry-out type of facility. So after the event, the garbage is removed from the site, and we don't leave any garbage behind. We're not generating a large.
Right. And then I know that Mr. Barron's raised one of the points in his comments with respect to school buses. Do you have any school buses that come to the site, or?
Right now, we do not have any school buses that come to our site. We do open historic Greenbridge Landing for multiple events on weekends. It should be noted that when there was a full-time curator at Greenbridge Landing from 1939 to I think 2007, school groups did attend, and being that the event would be the parking lot could serve that space if that need arose, but we don't foresee that occurring.
At this point, there's no plans to restore the curator?
Not at this time.
So I have other witnesses, but
Yeah, I
further
understood.
questions,
I've got a few questions, just to start. Is it my understanding that the Historical Society and this particular site has no affiliation with the government of Bergen County? I know you said that you were the, Mrs. Smith, you said that you were the president of the Bergen County Historical Society.
Correct.
Is that just the name of an independent group, or is there some kind of a direct affiliation with Bergen County government?
No, in fact, the Bergen County Historical Society predates the Bergen County Cultural Historic Affairs Office by probably 75 years. We are an all-volunteer organization and not a government agency. However, the Bergen County Historical Society, with a representative from River Edge, New Milford, Teaneck County of Bergen, and the state of New Jersey, do make up the Historic New Bridge Landing Park Commission. And that Park Commission helps to manage the different entities that are involved in that Historic New Bridge Landing.
So basically, you're self-standing?
Correct.
Okay. You've already told me you're a nonprofit, a 501c3. Well, I've been out there earlier. Earlier was several months ago when the application was first submitted, and had a chat with some of the people out there. And one of the questions I asked them was, who holds the deed to this land? Who is the real owner of this parcel?
The Bergen County Historical Society.
So the society holds it themselves, okay, so you're it. So if you, for some reason, disappear, the government doesn't automatically get the land. It's yours to handle, dispose of, and so forth, okay?
There are different parcels that surround it.
Correct.
For instance, the parcel fronting on Newbridge Road, I believe, is owned by the county.
From Newbridge Road to the fence is owned by the county. The meadow is owned by the state of New Jersey.
So the parcel you're referring to from Newbridge Road with the fence was the old Bergenfield junkyard? Yes, that was Green Acres.
Correct.
Development, yes, I remember testifying at that. Okay.
But the
Not to date myself, but I remember that. And
the property that you mentioned is completely Bergen County still.
yeah, and I'm so happy that this town and everybody finally took care of that.
Absolutely.
And it definitely enhances your site.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that, now, well, we're talking about parcels, and I'm going to get into it a little later. The parking right now, you just mentioned, is basically across the street, and an overflow is Jersey Transit facilities, their parking lots. I think if I recall looking at the drawing, the lot across the street, which was the old Pizza Town, if I remember, that right now I think somewhere was designated as New Jersey DEP, not DOT.
No, the DEP owns it.
DEP owns it. Can you explain that maybe for me?
Right. It's that came along with the purchase of the former junkyard property. So again, the state of New Jersey.
They were the people with the funds available, and they were tapped. Okay, I can see that. As I said, later we're going to discuss it, but they own that parcel. Okay. Explain to me your source of funds. One thing you mentioned was that you do have outdoor cooking demonstrations. I believe was mentioned. I assume that basically they're demonstrations rather than sales of food. Otherwise, we're looking at a food handler's license.
We do have a food handler's license.
Oh, you do have a food. Oh,
that's correct.
All right. All right. Maybe we should. All right. So you have one. All right. Good.
But just for the record, we don't serve any of our any 18th century food to any visitors.
You don't serve 18? No.
No. So, a little too much iron in the cookware. But I think that's good for you.
What about domestic animals?
There are no domestic animals.
So you don't have any for demonstration or,
No.
okay.
We've talked about goats to eat some of the Phragmites, the invasive species goats, or Phragmites that have come onto the property.
Okay.
No, there's no other.
You couldn't find a domestic animal that consumes the Phragmites.
Goats would, but,
Okay. Is it safe to say that you currently don't have and don't plan on any amusement devices?
I know.
No. Okay. All right. Might be a fair question to you since you're going to be the operator. If I recall the drawings, you show a gas line coming in. No, a natural gas line? I was wondering what that was for. Is it for cooking, for
Oh, no, for
heat?
heating for the,
It's for heating, okay. So there's no cooking indoors, you got an outdoors, okay. All right, any questions by board members? We'll start on the right this time.
Just one, I know you said currently there's no plan on buses accessing the property, but, you know, I'm assuming with success, there's more awareness, there's more programs that get developed, et cetera. Is it kind of, we don't ever expect that to happen, or it's going to be possible that we're going to have school programs coming in and bringing kids on buses or not?
I think down the road, there's always possibilities, but you know, this is the first real major hurdle to have ADA compliant bathrooms and facilities. You know, when you look at when the von Steuben House was accepting tours, the bathrooms on the second floor, so that's not going to be acceptable. I think what's one of the things that makes the site so exciting for a lot of our events is that when we have, as Deborah mentioned, between 25 and 30 historians, volunteers, and docents bring the site to life. Everybody is volunteering, so they have jobs and other activities during the week. So when students come on the weekends, and many do, which is, it kind of seems to buck the trend of a lot of historic sites, that there's young, old, different crowds that come to Newbridge Landing. We tried having engaging activities throughout the whole site, so people really get the full experience. So that's what really, when we do get queries, we try to steer individuals to those events.
And when we did have school groups, they would park on the street in front of PSE&G, the substation there. They wouldn't conflict with the apartments, or that's before, of course, the Pizza Town was vacated. But I never saw it as an issue.
The other one, I know you said, you know, kind of garbage in and out, but again, as, you know, as things develop within the new building, I'm assuming there's going to be more activity, is it going to get to the level where you need to have, you know, services to take care of that?
The von Steuben House did used to have services where they would have a regular garbage pickup, and when it was full-time curator. And that was just, I guess, like a once-a-week garbage pickup. And then that doesn't occur. DPW has been fantastic, you know, and any time that there's something that they've absolutely helped us. Trees and branches and stuff like that. But, again, I think one of the exciting things about this is our primary building. It's going to shift a lot of the dynamics as well. So we do have a lot of lectures occurring now in the von Steuben House. Maybe lectures shift to this structure. Right. So it's just going to change the dynamics.
Okay, but do you anticipate having to have regular garbage pickups there going forward or not?
I don't foresee that being an issue.
Not now. When, you know, as things change, if we have to make arrangements, we'll make arrangements.
I would just like to add something. I'm a member of the Historic Newbridge Landing State Park Commission, and we work very, very closely with the Historical Society. This project is very interesting to us as residents of River Edge. This historic museum is going to be an economic engine for our town, because we expect that we will have many, many visitors that will want to visit this very historic site. More of the history of the American Revolution took place in New Jersey and right here in our area than any other place in the state. And we believe that it has not been fully developed. We hope that with the building of this museum, that we're going to attract not only more visitors, we're 7 miles away from the George Washington Bridge. We should be bringing national and international guests to our site, and we hope that this museum will do just that. We're doing it for River Edge, at least my interest, my vested interest. We're all residents. Well, Deborah and I are residents of River Edge, but this is our vested interest in having it be an economic and a very productive project for River Edge.
You done?
No, I didn't get
Oh, I'm sorry, all right.
Mary stole my thunder. After what she said, I've been following this project for the past 9 years I've been in council as mayor. I am extraordinarily pleased to see where it is today through your efforts and bring it to where we are today. I see the vision for what Mary sees. I think this is an area of town that will be uplifted economically. It'll hopefully maybe spur some of the redevelopment plans which have faltered in the south end of town. It's going to put River Edge literally back on the map. It's from my personal interest as a history buff, I think it's going to be a great cultural asset for us also. And I'm very excited about the project, and I hope it becomes successful. I want it to be successful, and like I said, it'll be our little crown jewel of River Edge. So thank you for all your
efforts. And I would also like to add that Mayor Mignon has been a wonderful help and an asset to us at the site, that we appreciate all the help that he has been giving us. He understands what we're trying to do.
Next?
No comment.
No comment? No? Councilman?
No, I'm good.
You good?
Well, I'm new to the land use board. I guess I just have one thing I just want you to explore with me just a little bit. And I'm on the page where it talks about flood hazard notes. It looks like the elevation of the building on the east side will be as high as 8 feet above water level, and on the west side as low as 5 feet. I'm just assuming, and I just would like for you to talk briefly about how the building has been designed in case of flood and how it would survive floods that sometimes do occur.
Councilman, I think that our engineer would be the better one to testify to that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this plan. I'm just curious about that contingency.
Our engineer, you can talk about those issues.
Great.
Okay?
Yes.
I have one quick question. If I heard, Mr. Smith, if I heard you correctly, you mentioned restoration of the swing bridge?
The Von Steuben House.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh, I had a vested interest in that bridge, okay.
Want to buy it?
Actually, I was on the local engineering society board of directors, and I was on the historical committee, and that was one thing I was eyeing, yeah. Any further questions of these people? No? Okay, Mr. Barrett, let's move on. Well, you're going to have your engineer, your architect, your landscape architect, and your traffic person. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Let's open this up to the public for any questions of these three folks here.
You're all staying if you know, it's up to you, but everybody's staying, nobody's leaving. So you wanted to wait?
Let's do it one at a time, as we usually do it, otherwise, we're gonna get lost here.
Motion open.
Is this motion open, a motion
So
to
moved.
second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now, this public comments are only open to the topics discussed by the last three individuals. So once again, we'll start in the front row. Nobody. The second row over by the outside wall. Anybody down the second row? Oh, we're moving right along here again. Third row. What? Anybody in the back? You raised your hand, Mr. Barrett. No. All right. Very good. So motion to close?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Wonderful. Okay. Next, this is your engineer?
I'm actually-
I didn't mean it that way.
I'm actually a landscape architect.
Oh, okay.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Kenneth R. Grisewood, Grisewood. I'm going to give you my credentials. I received a Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture from the University of Kentucky in 1980. Passed the Uniform National Exam in 1983. I'm a New Jersey licensed landscape architect as well as a New Jersey professional planner. I'm a registered landscape architect in the states of New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Kentucky. I'm a principal at Menlo Engineering. I have been with Menlo Engineering since 1993 in the capacity of a senior landscape architect with responsibilities in site planning, grading plan, preparation of lighting and landscape site details, as well as environmental impact statements, delineating wetlands, and regulatory permitting. I have testified before boards across the state of New Jersey as a landscape architect, including the borough of Weehawken, the borough of Edgewater, the town of Ridgewood, the town of Morristown, township of Homedale, township of Mansfield, in East Windsor, and have also testified before the West Hampton Township Board as a professional planner.
Have you been before this board before?
No, sir. I have not.
Welcome.
Thank you.
May I just ask a question of council? Council, is he being offered as a landscape architect and a planner, or just a landscape architect?
Both.
Both, okay.
If you could describe the changes that are
Certainly.
to be made to the site.
If you don't mind, I'm going to stand over by the exhibits. I have two exhibits to introduce tonight.
Maybe I'll move this over. Might be better.
The first exhibit I'm going to mark as A1. And I guess we'll put the date on, 5/1/19. The exhibit's entitled Bergen County Historical Society, Block 1304, Lot 2. Block 1303, Lot 2, 7.69 acres. It's entitled Existing Condition Exhibit, prepared May 1st, 2019 by Menlo Engineering Associates. It is a Google Earth image with the tract area highlighted in white and black, superimposed over the aerial image. North is obviously to the top of the sheet, east is to the right side of the board. I'm going to mark the second exhibit. The second exhibit I'll be referring to tonight, I'm marking as A2. This exhibit is also entitled Bergen County Historical Society, Block 1304, Lot 2, and Block 1303, Lot 2, 7.69 acres. It's entitled Site Plan Exhibit, dated 5/1/19, again, prepared by Menlo Engineering. And this is actually a rendered version of Sheet 4 of the site plan submission set, with a zoning table overlaid on top of a Google Earth image. I'm going to begin by describing the property location, the surrounding features, and then move on to the proposed improvements. So I'll be referring back to Exhibit A1 first. The parcel is located at the eastern terminus of the Main Street New Bridge Hackensack Avenue intersection. It lies between New Bridge Road and the Hackensack River to the east. The tract in question comprises two lots, Block 1303 Lot 2, which is a small parcel to the north of New Bridge Road, and Block 1304 Lot 2, which is south of New Bridge Road. There are no proposed activities, improvements, or actions taken for Block 1303 Lot 2, which is north of New Bridge Road. The subject application and all the improvements that we're going to be discussing tonight is concentrated on Block 1304 Lot 2. That parcel contains 6.7 acres. It's an irregularly shaped parcel with its width and depth varying. The width at the narrowest point, about its midpoint, is 307 feet to over 510 feet at the northern edges. Its depth is also variable. It ranges from 490 feet along the western boundary to over 695 feet on the eastern half. The tract contains 548 feet of frontage along Main Street, which acts as the southern boundary of the tract. The surrounding land uses vary from residential, commercial, to public open space. Across Main Street to the south lies the Steuben Arms apartment, a residential complex. To the east lies Lot 1304 Lot 3, which is owned by the New Jersey DEP. It contains the historic Steuben House, as well as the terminus cul-de-sac of Main Street and a gravel parking area. To the northeast of the property lies the Hackensack River. North of the property is New Bridge Road and the additional parcel owned by the Bergen County Historical Society. To the west of the property is Block 1304 Lot 1. That's the open field area that the ownership is comprised of both the DEP and the county. And then immediately southwest of the property is Block 1305 Lot 1. This is the parcel that's owned by the DEP, the NJDEP, and acts as a parking lot facility. It is currently striped with 63 parking spaces. Now, moving to the actual site features, the site contains 3.7 acres of regulated freshwater wetlands. And the wetland limits extend more than halfway across the site and limiting the development potential of the parcel to only the very southern and southwest corners of the tract. An NJDEP letter of interpretation was issued on June 23rd, 2017, with a resource value clarification issued on January 22nd, 2018. The regulated features are indicated on all the site plans. The buffer associated with the wetland area ranges from 50 feet along the southern limits to 150 feet along the western limits. The parcel's topography is gentle to flat. The only developable area in the southwest corner and the southern edges, the elevations range from just over 9 to just under elevation 2 along the wetland areas. The flood hazard elevation associated with the Hackensack River in this area is established at elevation 9. From there, the parcel has the existing land use is obviously preserved historical exhibit structures, a cluster of varying structures. The Campbell Christie House, which is a two-story structure, is located in the southwest corner. The Demarest House, which is also a two-story structure, is located in the southeast portion of the property. And a two-story wood frame barn lies in the center portion along the eastern common property line with the NJDP parcel. This barn actually extends across the property line by 2.4 feet, and subsequently is going to require a variance, an existing nonconformity variance from this board. Finally, there are a grouping of outbuildings, an out kitchen and a frame shed, along with an outhouse that lie immediately north of Campbell Christie House, just south of the wetland area. The parcel contains 15,600 square feet of existing impervious coverages, which includes the buildings and a compacted, undelineated gravel, compacted earth parking area along the western property line. It falls within the M1 district of, as shown on your zoning map, which is the public land zone. There are no particular specific bulk standards applied under that zone. The existing proposed use remains as a cultural historic center, open to the public. The vegetation found on the community can be divided basically into two communities. We have a Phragmites-dominated wetland that has scattered trees around the perimeter. The trees are comprised of poplars, black walnut, black locust, pin oak, ailanthus, and sweet gum. None of the specimens that we observed were outstanding or significant. The second community basically is a maintained lawn landscape around the historic structures in the south and southwestern portions of the property. So that's the existing conditions, the surrounding land uses, and I'll move to our proposed improvement. Referring now to Exhibit A2, again, north is to the top of the sheet, east is to the right-hand side of the board. Proposal essentially focus on the construction of a new two-story barn-like structure with a footprint area of 2,331 square feet. The 63 by 37 proposed structure provides the much-needed museum space, exhibit area, artifact storage, library space, a meeting room, and restrooms. The proposed structure, which is shown on this exhibit, is Lake Tan, located 131 feet from the Main Street right-of-way, 13 feet from the western property line, and 30 feet from the Campbell Christie house. Given the constraints of the property, the wetlands comprise, like I said, 3.7 acres. That doesn't include the transition area. So this parcel has a very limited developable envelope. So the siting of this building could really only occur in this southwest corner. And so it was tightly tucked in. The limit of disturbance was intentionally narrowed. We only disturbed 0.47 acres of land area. The plan provides only 3,016 square feet of new impervious surface, which results in a proposed impervious coverage of only 6.4% across the site. So the remaining 93.6% of the site is open impervious coverage landscape area. Ancillary to the new building, there are a couple of additional features. A deck structure is located on the south side of the building, along with a paper gathering area for when the society has some kinds of events. There is an interconnecting walkway system, as well as a gravel service drive, leading to, in the very southwestern corner of the property, 2 new ADA stalls, like asphalt pavement, and a defined and paved entrance and exit driveway. The purpose of the ADA stalls was to ensure that the new structure would be ADA compliant with an ADA parking stalls and an ADA accessible route to the new structure. The new materials chosen were chosen to blend with the existing structure. The gravel for the driveway is red shale stone with dark shale pavers. The fencing materials, which will enclose the parking area and separate the service drive from the walkways, are anticipated to match the existing fencing, which is a combination split rail fencing along the perimeter and picket fencing on the interior. All right, since there's no specific standards for the zone, there wasn't any specific standards for the parking calculation for this particular use. So we applied what's noted as the community building standard, which requires 1 space per 75 gross square feet. So the 2,331 square foot footprint divided by 75 results in 31 parking stalls. As we described, there are 63 parking stalls located on block 1305 lot 1, which is the parcel, the off-site parcel of the one owned by the DEP. So there'll be significant surplus of parking based on that calculation. There are 2 new ADA parking stalls proposed on site down in the southwest corner. They'll be constructed in accordance with all the ADA standards and will provide an ADA accessible route. The driveway, a new driveway, formalized driveway, is proposed to be 24 feet wide, which provides adequate backup space. It's paved and will be curved. The parking spaces are located 9 feet from the Main Street right-of-way and 11 feet from the western property line. The planner has noted that we will need a design exception for these 2 spaces since they are actually located in the front yard, but it does meet the buffer requirements outlined within your ordinance for front yard parking. It will be surrounded by the split rail fence as well as landscape plantings to screen. With regard to lighting, the facility currently is lit by one single Cobra head style utility pole light. It's located about midway, about 200 feet back. And discussing the lighting with the Historical Society, they felt that this light fixture is not compatible with the character of the historic structures in the context, so they would like that light to be removed. They're proposing a series of 6 new post lights to be placed on either side of the ADA parking stalls and then placed within the surrounding the gathering area. The fixtures are residential in scale and character. They're comprised of 8-watt LED candle-style bulbs mounted on a decorative post at 6.25 feet, 6 feet 3 inches. So it's a residential scale light and post light. The plan provides a minimum of 0.3 foot candles with an average of 0.41 and an average to minimum uniformity ratio of 1.37 to 1. It's anticipated that these post lights, though, will only be illuminated during events. They are not going to be on, as far as I am aware, dawn to dusk every single night. Additional building-mounted fixtures will be provided on the new 2-story structure to address additional event lighting and the security lighting for the facility. Landscaping was basically kept to a very simple approach. We focused on trying to screen the non-period correct materials from the historical setting, meaning we were trying to screen the automobiles and the parking areas, screen utilities, and soften the foundation edges of the new structure. Plan depicts 3 deciduous shade trees, red maples, 2 pink flowering dogwoods along the north side of the proposed building, 116 shrubs, which is a combination of both deciduous and evergreen shrubs, including evergreen hollies, inkberries, sweetbriar, and bayberry. So the majority of the materials are native landscape materials. In addition, there'll be 163 ground cover plantings, which includes ornamental grasses and black-eyed Susans. The project is going to require some additional NJDEP permits, which have not yet been applied for. We will require an NJDEP waterfront development permit as a result of developing a tract that's immediately adjacent to a tidal body outside the coastal area. It will require a NJDEP freshwater wetland transition area waiver for redevelopment for a limited amount of disturbance along the north side of the building to allow the building to actually be constructed. It's converting grass and then bringing it back to grass or landscape, so it's considered a redevelopment. And then the final one was the NJDEP flood hazard area for construction of a structure within the floodplain. Generally, those 3 permits get bundled together into one application package that goes forward to the DEP. We will need additional utility company permits for water and sewer. I believe the applications for the Bergen County site plan has been filed, as well as the Bergen County Soil Conservation District. Now, I'd like to address the variance and waiver, if I might. I'm not going to sit down to read this. All right, I'm going to begin with the building setback. The lawfully existing wood frame barn lies over the eastern common line with block 1304, lot 3 by 2.4 feet. The granting of the variance furthers the purpose of the MLUO, and the benefits of granting the variance outweigh any detriments. First, the variance relates to this specific property, which contains multiple historic structures and has no impact on any surrounding properties. As a result of the wetlands, the parcel contains only a limited buildable envelope, restricting the placement of additional structures. Since the Historical Society requires additional exhibit space the new structure provides, the existing barn cannot be relocated to another area of this parcel. The historical nature of the structure and the historical setting, including the relationship to the other historical structures, constitutes an extraordinary and exceptional situation affecting this specific property and structure. The barn is a portion of a historical context which includes the adjoining publicly owned parcel, block 1304, lot 3, which contains the Steuben House, creating a unique situation. The purposes of zoning listed in the MLU furthered by this application are as follows. A, to encourage the municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in this state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The existing barn in its current location is part of an overall cultural center promoting the public's general welfare. I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. The barn's physical location, as it relates to the Steuben House on the NJD parcel to the east, and the Demarest House on the application parcel, block 1304, lot 2, adds context to those two structures. J, to promote the conservation of historic sites and districts, open space, energy resources, and natural resources in the state, and to prevent urban sprawl and degradation of the environment through improper use of land. The preservation of the barn in its current location ensures the conservation of this historical structure. Therefore, the granting of the variance promotes the intent and purpose of the municipal land use law by promoting the public welfare, promoting a desirable visual environment, and the conservation of historic sites and districts without substantial detriment to the public. Since the facility, including the barn, is open to the public and partially on lands owned by a public entity, the benefits are to the public in general and not simply an individual property owner. Negative criteria. Granting the variance does not present a substantial detriment to the public good and must not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan, zone plan, and zoning ordinance. The granting of this variance has no impact on any surrounding property, since the parcel is surrounded by public lands and right-of-ways. The variance does not impair or interfere with the light, air, or open space on this property or any adjacent properties. It is unique to the property and promotes the historical use and the goals of historic preservation. With regard to the exception of the front yard parking, the two ADA parking spaces are set back 9 feet from the right-of-way, but located in the front yard. The borough planner notes the parking as requiring an exception for its front yard location, but compliant with the buffer requirements. In my opinion, the exception can be granted without resulting in a substantial detriment to the public good for the following reasons. First, By keeping the parking associated to the street rather than the adjacent historic structures, the intrusion into the historic site with non-period materials such as asphalt is limited, further protecting the context surrounding the historic structures. 2, the surrounding on-street parking on both sides of Main Street and the lack of any screening on the surrounding off-street parking areas results in a far greater negative visual impact than the proposed 2 ADA spaces. The 2 ADA parking spaces are enclosed with period fencing and surrounded by landscape materials screening the parking. And that concludes the testimony.
The councilman had a question before.
With regard to the elevation, the finished floor of the proposed building will be set 1 foot above the flood hazard elevation, which is elevation 9. So the finished floor of the building is at elevation 10. The structural integrity and how those foundations are adapted for this situation probably can be better answered by the architect. But the finished floor elevation is in compliance with the NJDEP rules establishing the finished floor to be 1 foot above the flood hazard elevation.
Yes, thank you.
I did have a few.
Yeah,
Not to
Mr.
cut
Barrett,
anyone off.
we want to address the planning aspects?
I'll address, yes, what I can. First and foremost, I think he did a good job with the planning testimony. I really have no objections to the testimony that was offered. The issue of the variance, however, I'm just wondering if the board can technically even grant it. I don't think it impacts what's being proposed tonight, but we are talking about an off-site improvement without consent of the state. So I think we could either just acknowledge that it exists and move on, or cross that bridge another day. I think, again, I don't think it impacts what's being proposed. I just caution the board in terms of granting that and setting a precedent without that formal approval from the state.
Understood. There will be additional questions about that. And I think, particularly from the parking standpoint, I believe we'll leave those for your engineer.
What question might that be?
Off-site parking.
Well, let me ask the planner. I believe the arrangement with the DEP lot and the parking was approved at some point.
Yeah, there was a letter submitted from the Planning State Park Commission authorizing the use of the lot.
So that arrangement was constructed some time ago?
There's a letter.
Yeah, I've seen it.
In the spring.
Okay. I remember.
Months ago.
Okay.
At their meeting, they approved the society's use of the lot at necessary.
With or without conditions?
No conditions.
All right.
As we heard from Mr. Smith, the commission, and if I'm misspeaking, was ready. Let's go back up.
You don't have it? We'll ask them for a copy. We'll ask them for another copy. Let's go.
Perhaps you could educate all of us.
Right.
We have these surrounding parcels that are owned by different entities.
Correct.
Does the legislation established in the Park Commission, what authority does it give the commission with respect to these parcels?
Right, so we are a state park commission that is authorized by the state of New Jersey and receive funding from the state of New Jersey now as well, that we help to coordinate and facilitate planning that occurs at historic New Ridge Landing. The whole purpose of the purchase of the Pizza Town lot was to add parking to the historic New Ridge Landing Park Commission, and also coincides with a 2006 plan created by Hunter. I'll show the exact technical.
Implementation plan?
Right, 2006 historic implementation plan that they viewed, and it's viewed the parking lot and Main Street and Hackensack Avenue as the gateway to the park. So prior to that, in 1955, when the barn was moved to historic New Ridge Landing, the Bergen County Historical Society donated the property for a parking lot at the Steuben House. And what we call that is drive-up history, where you could drive up to the front of the historic building, get out of your car, walk into the house, get back into the car, and drive away, right? And we really wanted to change that orientation. That was the whole idea where the parking lot was acquired. So we changed the orientation that you park at that entryway, and then you make your way at the museum building and begin a path to the historic core. And that has been a part of the planning process of the commission going back at least 2006.
I think the question was more, does the Park Commission have the authority to allow the society to use that parking area?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there any way they can withdraw that? In other words, at some point down the road, your park is you're very successful, and suddenly, for some unknown reason, they decide they don't want you to park there anymore. How is this locked in stone?
I mean, it's purchased, it's purchased with through Green Acres funding, and the society has been involved at Newbridge Landing, as I mentioned in my initial testimony, since 1926, and has been a tenant, or not a tenant, but a partner of the state since 1939. So I think for the state to, we have a really positive relationship with the state of New Jersey, DEP. They do have a representative on the Park Commission that when, I would be very surprised if there would be any termination of the Park Commission.
Does your letter of agreement state anything about it being revocable? Hey, can you send us another copy of that?
Sure.
When you get it, send it to the...
Yeah, I mean, if you'd like, I can read it. It's very short.
We got 10:30 curfew, that's funny, is it?
So we're moving right along. March 13, 2019. This is from the Historic Newbridge Landing State Park Commission. The Historic Newbridge Landing State Park Commission confirmed use of the parking lot, 31 spaces at the corner of Hackensack Avenue and Main Street by resolution. This parking lot facilitates parking space requirements for the new museum building, 1201 Main Street, River Edge, at the museum site, 1201-1209 Main Street. New paragraph, the lot was acquired for use of visitors and staff at the museum site, Historic Newbridge Landing. Parking lot is now owned by the NJDEP and under the jurisdiction of the Park Commission. So it neither states that it's replicable, it simply states that under the jurisdiction of the Park Commission.
What was the number of spaces they mentioned? 31. Didn't we hear 50 or 60 spaces?
It's currently striped with 63 spaces. So the parking issue, so with regard to off-site parking, I think the parking area allows for 63 parking spaces, 31 are required, and the ordinance does allow for off-site parking within a certain proximity to the site. So I'm not sure if any relief is required.
So they're reserving the remainder for themselves?
No, I think that because we were required to have 31, they're authorizing the 31.
Why not all 63?
Yeah. Can you get them to revise that letter and give the 50 or 60 to...
Would, as the chairman of the commission, you would the commission...
Yeah, can you grant yourself...
Authorize the use of the entire lot.
Okay, so you'll amend your letter and...
Revised letter.
Okay.
Well, do we want something in writing? Does the board want something in writing?
Well, yeah, he's going to amend the letter and send it.
To me?
Yeah. And to the...
Wait.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, if you take all of the parking on that parcel and dedicate it to this use, which isn't really required anyway, what happens to the remaining parcels?
It's wooded right now.
No. State owned. There's other properties owned by the state. They only require this. In my personal opinion, if it's not in perpetuity, really you should just request a variance relief for the parking.
Okay.
Because the only parking you're really providing on site are 2 parking spaces.
Correct.
And if you don't have a long-term or the parking in perpetuity, here's what'll happen. If you lose it, you'll be back here.
That's,
So what, you're here
and then we'll
tonight.
be a guys who shutting them down.
Right.
Let me ask you this question. The piece of land there across the street has some greenery and quite a bit of asphalt. Of the 50 or 60 spaces that are striped, does that represent all that asphalt that's there?
Yeah,
Yes, it does. Okay,
from what I recall, you know.
basically, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
No, the other question I had was, not that I don't think it's ever gonna happen, but when the county had their widening plan for Hackensack Avenue, what was the impact on this parcel at that point?
All of that land was acquired. That right-of-way line, that new right-of-way line was established based on the
But they would vacate the jug handle, the commission would get part of that.
They get more. The issue would be the Hakimian Apartments would also get a portion of that jug handle. But the remaining parcel, they would get. And ultimately, if that plan ever went forward, then you could vacate the rest of the road, and the entire parcel becomes park. I don't know what happened with the PSE&G substation, whether the PSE&G still owns that.
All right.
If they didn't, they would acquire that, and then you could make this, everything would be separated.
Another question goes into this jurisdiction. You testified that we only had that small buildable footprint area on that one parcel. Are there any legal or deed restrictions why the commission couldn't expand onto the parcel to the west, which is owned by the county of Bergen?
We did not explore that. We worked within the parcels under the ownership of the Sterling side.
That's DEP.
That was a, yeah, that
No,
was,
the county's to the left, DP's to the right.
No.
no.
DEP is to the west. The county is just a right-of-way.
That's not what our plan says. Block 1 is county of Bergen.
That's how it's listed on the borough tax records, Mayor. When it was conveyed,
Yeah, that's incorrect, though.
right, I don't think, I have a copy of the deed, but I remember seeing that it was conveyed to both the county and the DEP, of the junkyard.
I had that, Mayor, I had that conversation with Jimmy Anspino. That is DEP, not county. The only thing the county did, when the property was given back to the DEP, a portion of it, again, was created. The right-of-way was created in order to get the road widening in there, to eliminate the jug handle. That's all that was done.
So our
The
tax
remaining
maps have to be
parcel-
updated.
So the remaining parcel is actually NJDEP. They own that, and they own Pizza Town property. Then as you go into the park, I believe the Historic Society owns on the right side, and then DEP owns on the left side as you get closer to the river, my recollection. That's why when the town vacated Main Street, it was done twice. Because the original vacation was given to either totally to the Historic Society, and that was an error, because they don't own both sides
But that
of
was
the street.
the vacation at the very end piece.
And
Whose jurisdiction then is it between Hackensack Avenue and that piece? That's still the boroughs?
that's the $1 million question. I think it's the boroughs.
But we don't
So
know.
the borough owns up to where the PSE&G substation is. The most easterly portion of where the substation is.
But also then part of the jug handle is the borough.
Jug handle, I believe, is the county.
Well, not this piece that runs.
And as you come back out, then it's local.
So the second part of jug handle is ours.
And then the pipes are county. And then the pipes, they want to give back to us because they love us.
That's another issue.
Yeah, sure. So it's a little confusing. That's what I'm saying. At some point, I guess the question goes back to, I don't think you can grant, I agree with you. I don't think you can grant a variance based on an encroachment on somebody else's property. So I think it's a moot point anyway. If it exists, you're not going to make them move it. So, leave it alone. But as far as if there is no long-term lease in perpetuity, how do you restrict the parking?
Yeah.
I would ask for relief. And then the other question, again, I know we had a conversation on the phone. Why put the 2 handicap parking spaces
Inside, yeah.
on this lot? Why not put it on the other lot?
We contemplated that, but because we did not have adequate information to confirm that the ADA spaces that are striped on that parcel complied with the ADA requirements, we felt and we recommended to the applicant that we
Just
put
restrict it.
Well, there's slope involved and improvements, it may require improvements that we felt it was better for the applicant to do the ADA spaces directly on site and confirm that.
Here's the question.
Yeah.
If you don't require parking, you don't require the ADA parking space.
Now,
We still want to address the public access and allowing ADA. It benefits.
What I'm trying to say is, if there's ADA parking spaces on that parking lot, and you're not touching the lot, you're not improving it, you're doing nothing, you do not have to bring that up to today's code. It remains as is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not building a new parking lot,
would restriping what's there fall in that category?
then you have to meet code. Well, then you gotta meet code. Why would you restripe what's there?
Well, if I'm gonna put 60 cars over there, I sure as heck want to see where the lines are and the aisles are.
Well, they use it now. I'm just saying, if you want to keep it, you're building this, this little parking lot in the front for 2 parking spaces.
Well, no, it's more than that. We just talked about how we're going to get people from the world coming here. And you got a sea of asphalt there with stripes that are probably half gone and going to be further gone later on. It certainly makes sense from a safety standpoint to restripe them. And if you're going to restripe them, put your handicap over there, and then you won't have cars encroaching on your site.
Right.
All right, but we got other issues there too. But you people have been very nice not to show that parcel across the street. And I think that you better. And you better show your striping over there, and you better show your handicap over there. We're not going to neglect it. Because with that jug handle, that place is a horror scene. It's a mess with the cars. And that includes safety with the speed those people go around that corner and block that intersection and everything else.
That's an enforcement issue, and that has nothing to do with us.
Well, we might make it part of this application for you to do. And while we're at it, you got a crosswalk situation there that we're going to talk about later.
We have our traffic engineer.
Yes, that's what I said. We're going to talk about that later.
What is the expected hours of operation of the facility? Is it going to be open regularly? Is it going to be open like per appointment? Is it going to be open, every other weekend? What do you foresee at this point?
I really foresee us continuing the schedule that we have right now. That we're open. We have an event on May 19th. Hope you can make it. 1 to 5 on a Sunday. So at that point, there's no commuters parked over in that area. It's Sunday in Bergen County. We have a lecture coming up on May 23rd at 7:30 at the Palm Student House. Hopefully, we'll make that too. So we do have multiple events throughout the month.
But they're limited to typically weekend days, and I would assume there might be an occasional weeknight if you have a lecture or something like that.
Correct.
It's still a safety issue.
I'm not saying it isn't, but what
All
I'm
right.
saying is that it's
We
not
don't-
5
we don't
o'clock
schedule
on a
people
Thursday
getting
night
hit.
but they're doing it now.
The primary parking is off-site. We all agree to that. The primary parking needs to be redefined.
I'm not disputing that. What I'm
Okay.
saying, but to say that they can't use it, it's there. It has to. They have to
They
figure out.
have
ways
to use it. They have no
safety. Yeah,
choice.
well, that's what I'm saying.
They're not gonna-
And I agree. There'll probably be some safety requirements,
Right.
crosswalk and flashers.
Exactly.
and maybe down the road some fencing or something, so you sort of channel people to the crossing rather than
Safely.
cross, but that's something we could talk with the traffic engineer, but,
It's my understanding that the commission, as funds become available, intends to improve that area. That's dependent upon the government allocating funds.
Our criteria is gonna be one thing. When you implement it, dollar-wise, is your area, not ours.
I'm sorry,
When you implement, if we have certain criteria about parking and crosswalks, okay, the implementation of that dollar-wise is your problem, not ours. We're setting the site standard.
you have to be more specific. I don't know what that means.
Well, what it means is striping, handicap, and we gotta discuss the crosswalk situation. Now, if you people are pleading poverty, which I can understand, all right, as a nonprofit, that's not gonna sway my decision. My decision, and our decision, I would imagine, is based on pure safety and accommodating the hundreds of people that are gonna be coming to this, attraction.
People are already coming,
All right,
okay? There's no change in that. The change is that they now have a facility to,
attract more.
no, well, to perhaps, but it's not going to change drastically. That you park in the lot, you use the crosswalk at the light, and you get to the other side, and there's an internal path that's used
No,
to access.
we're gonna discuss that. Okay, number one, with your traffic person.
I think we should hear from the architect also about occupancy of the building, things like that, and how
Yeah.
they will operate.
But,
So, I think that will address it.
all right. Board member questions of the landscape architect.
First question, the permitting process, how long do you envision that to take, and when do you think you'd be able to break ground?
Probably 6 months for the DP. Sometimes DPs vary, but it's usually around 6 months.
I just wanted to offer something more specifically about the landscape architecture. I appreciate your efforts to increase the landscaping as I requested. The site is listed on both the state and national registers of historic places, and the Secretary of the Interior has certain guidelines to follow in terms of rehabilitation, restoration, new builds, that sort of thing. And because you're a private entity, technically you're exempt, and only it would be under, I guess, voluntary compliance with those guidelines. But I still wonder about, achieving all native plants, that sort of thing. Are there any suitable alternatives?
We can convert. The only non-native is actually the Japanese holly, the evergreen.
Mhm.
But we'll
If
look
there's
at-
something suitable, I mean, I'm
Right,
not
we
gonna kill you on that.
definitely can make that.
And also, in terms of the paving materials, obviously your goal is, I would think, is to match what's there and be historically accurate with the period. Are there certain materials that might lend themselves better than what's being proposed? I don't know, not being an expert, but I think like Belgian block is being proposed, and what kind of pavers?
We haven't exactly identified the specific paper yet, so we're going to sit down with the
Just
society.
maybe keep that in mind, something historically sensitive, I guess, would be
Right, correct.
my recommendation.
Speaking of the pavers, when you were discussing the on-site handicap parking, what is the pavement material over there?
That would be asphalt in the
That's what I
parking
thought
area.
you said, yeah. Yeah, but right now, your rendering is showing pretty red,
The walkway would be an ADA, so long as it's an ADA compliant surface, and the paver would end up being, we'd have select an ADA compliant paver to ensure that we can make the surface compliant.
if I'm reading this rendering correctly, you're showing your area where the handicap parking would be in red.
No, I'm not sure what you're looking at, but.
Huh?
No, this is correct. No, on the site plan, but on the rendering, you're correct, it doesn't show.
No, I think
So-
that's not the point.
The handicap
So
parking is
you're,
at the bottom right of the picture.
right now, you're proposing normal black pavement, bituminous pavement, from the curb line to Main Street up to the interior gate.
Correct.
Okay. And beyond that is your pavers.
There was a paver walkway that
Right.
goes,
Okay.
and then there's the red show.
Yes. Oh, I see what we did. Okay, got it. All right. Got it. I thought suddenly we were using red asphalt.
One question, you talked about changing in the lighting.
Yes.
And you given some numbers on illumination, et cetera. Was there any significant change between what was proposed with the original lighting and what results with the new lighting?
Well, there would be a difference in illumination. For one, the street light that's typically used is a high-pressure sodium light, so that's an orange glow light. It's going to provide a much broader spread of light. The proposed lighting is going to be, and it was concentrated basically in one point, one area. I think the existing pole is somewhere, like I said, it's a couple hundred feet, it's right around in here somewhere. It does show up on the existing plan. There was only one existing utility pole. So now we're going to provide lighting that would evenly distribute across the paved surfaces with low level, period acceptable fixtures.
So kind of spot illumination is going to be less,
Yes.
but it's over a broader.
Yes.
Your lighting plan shows that there's essentially no off-site spillage of light, correct?
Correct.
And there'll be no negative impact on the apartments across the street?
No, these would be very low level lighting.
Is there a need to put we'll call it a street light at your entrance from Main Street?
The frequency of use at night, I think, is probably very limited, so I don't think so. I also can't recall where the closest street light is at that intersection.
Don't think there are any.
There's none on that street.
I'm not certain.
I don't remember off the top of my head whether there are any on that street. But I do know that there's a substantial amount of light coming from the apartment complex, so I think there's light out there.
I'd like to see you consider lighting that entrance, especially for your non-summer activities, where it gets darker earlier.
We'll look into it.
All right. You ready for your architect? Oh, we gotta go to the public. Yes, all right.
Motion
So quick,
open.
motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, once again, front row. Go ahead.
Chairman Smith did identify that, and Jim Smith, in the commission meeting, to look at taking up, going to bid actually for a redesign of that parking lot. And the parking lot in question, a redesign of that, we're going to have it professionally designed, you know, in an efficient and environmentally sensitive way, that will address, of course, striping and all. But so that's actually in the works, where we're looking at design companies for bids on that, and then we will go out to bid, you know, on that work.
What?
That's how we have the funds to do that now, so that's in the works.
What would happen if in your application you submitted a drawing that showed the restriping as it is there now? And at some future point, when you get a little more funds or when you feel it's appropriate, then you could go that route of doing improvements. Right now, you're only looking at paint.
We can make that a condition of approval.
Yeah.
That can be done immediately. We have the funds.
Yeah.
The Park Commission has the funds to do that right now.
We can put it
I
on
mean,
the
you can
agenda
face
tomorrow.
it, basically what I'm saying. All right.
Just the existing condition you're talking about.
Yeah, restripe the existing condition, and if you want to go for an improvement later on as your funds and your schedule and everything else and your population of visitors permit or requires. Anyone else in the front row, public? The will of your consultants, right? Second row, anyone? We'll move back to the third row. Back row, wow.
Motion to close.
Oh, we got one in the back row. Oh, Mr. Smith, is it? No? Okay. No, it's not. I'm sorry, you're here. Yeah, would you please state your name and your location, your address?
I'm Peggy Norris. I live in Elmwood Park.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say that the Historic New Branch Landing Park Commission is really a sort of innovative concept of how various landowners and stakeholders can come together to create this historic site. So it's, I think, important to think of this site as a whole, and that all of the stakeholders are working for the benefit of carrying out the mission of the site. So that normally we think of, I own this, you own this, and she owns that, and we have to have those kind of agreements that you normally would have, a lease or an easement. But with the Park Commission, you have a different setup. And I don't know how that works legally, but it means that it's a partnership that creates this place in the middle of River Edge. So to some extent, we have to change our thinking about how things get done there. And
Understood.
that's what I would like to say.
My concern is losing your parking privileges across the street at some point. That was what my main concern.
I understand that. I did, but the
Improvements?
control for that actually comes from the Park Commission.
Well, yeah, we're only reviewing the land use here.
Mm-hmm.
The administration portion, we're leaving to you people. How you incorporate it with your various entities, the commission and the historical.
So you have the agreement that the lot will be used for parking.
Correct. I'm just hoping that somehow down the road, you don't lose it.
I hope
It could
not.
be catastrophic.
It would be catastrophic to all the
Yeah.
Stakeholders at the site.
Correct. That's my thrust. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else in the back row? Okay. Nobody else wishing to speak, I'll entertain a motion to close it to the public. Second. Good. Mr. Barrett, you're next.
Call upon my traffic engineer at this point.
Okay.
We're going to finish up with what?
You're gonna finish up with what?
The architect?
Okay. Anybody, who's gonna discuss the engineering? I thought you said an engineer. This is your engineer?
No, we have an engineer also, if there are any questions.
Who's gonna take the shortest time? All right.
Yeah, I think our traffic
Okay. Will you state your name and credentials for the board, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Jay Troutman, McDonough and Ray Associates. I'm a principal with the traffic engineering firm of McDonough and Ray Associates, 105 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, specializing in the field of traffic engineering. I've been practicing in the field for 32 years, conducting traffic studies for various types of sites, as well as reviewing traffic studies on behalf of the planning and zoning boards that I represent. And I've been accepted as a traffic expert at over 100 planning and zoning boards in the state of New Jersey.
Okay. You want to raise your...
Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Have you appeared before this board before? I don't believe so.
I have not.
Okay. Welcome to this.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
We were retained to conduct a review of the plans and the site where this building is proposed. We came up and did a site visit with Mr. Smith and his team. We conducted observations of the traffic and parking patterns while we were here. We then had discussions about how the site operates. Probably the main knowledge I got out of that is that everything that would occur within this new building is already occurring on the site in other buildings. This building is just going to make it more accessible and more up to code for those activities. So all the activity, the Historical Society and all their events are already occurring. So this is just, from a traffic impact standpoint, a way to accommodate all that activity in a better fashion. In terms of the parking, you heard Mr. Smith testify that on any type of significant event, you would have attendance and people directing the public how to access from the parking to the building, which was the main concern I saw when I first examined the whole situation. The main issue is the pedestrian flow from that remote lot to the building. The proposed pattern is to use the crosswalk across Main Street using the traffic signal control that would stop the Main Street traffic and allow the pedestrians to flow in the crosswalk, connecting to the path that's on the old salvage yard property and then into this site. So that's the pedestrian pattern, and that's part of the vision that Mr. Smith discussed as funds become available. This lot would be improved and that whole entrance pattern would be enhanced. And I can describe that on the plan that Mr. Griswood introduced.
This is wood.
So you can see on the exhibit the remote parking.
Correct.
You can see it is connected by crosswalk and then connected to a path that then connects into the site. So that's the designated pedestrian route for people using the remote parking.
And that's what's being used now.
Correct.
Well, there's no control right now. That's right.
Right.
And do you really think that people are going to park in that lot, in the southeast corner of that lot, walk all the ways to the northeast corner, northwest corner, cross across the street, and come all the ways back?
That was the main question I had when I first looked at the site and met with the team. And that's when it was described to me that you have attendants that would be managing this, and that is where the pedestrian flow must be directed. It's the only viable path between this lot and the site, and that has to be the path that's used, and that has to be the path that's enforced by the operator.
That might be good in theory, but I don't think that's going to work in practice. Metropolitan area people are very lazy. Okay.
I appreciate that, sir. I've had the same comment. But
Okay. All right.
I have a question. Is it possible that some type of barrier or fencing could be put around the lot so people wouldn't have the option to just leave the lot at any point?
That was
The whole
exactly...
area would have a
Yes,
fence
sir.
until you got to where you're supposed to actually exit?
That was exactly what was discussed as the plans evolved for the management of this lot. That was exactly what was discussed, that we would be able to sort of enforce that pattern, since that's the safe travel route.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be much more effective, having some type of fence or barrier, as opposed to having an attendant telling people, well, you can't exit here. It's going to get messy. It's the other way, it's sort of set up where it's default that you can't leave the lot other than where you're supposed to.
If we put in fencing, where are your means of egress and entry?
The existing ingress and egress are either from Hackensack Avenue or from Main Street.
Nothing from the jug handle and, well, Main Street would be across the street from the old junkyard from...
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So if you put an opening in your fence, all the lazy people are gonna jump through that opening.
If you have entrance and egress from...
Then you're gonna have, now,
Your fence
if you put
inside.
if you put a hole, if they cut through there, and they would jump over your split rail fence, to get to the path, or if you remove those few rails, they would flow through, but now you have a crosswalk in the middle of a block.
Sir, the only path that the pedestrians, the only safe designated path I would endorse for pedestrians from this lot is as I described it.
I
And I
understand
understand your
that's
point,
safe, but I'm
But
looking at what's
that's
gonna
what
happen
needs
in
to be
reality.
enforced as this lot is operated. And
Okay.
maybe we can hear something about how it operates today.
What would happen, you look at this, and give us the benefit of your knowledge and look-see. The corner of the jug handle there at Main Street, basically right opposite the entrance.
This corner?
Correct. What would happen if you located something over there?
I examined that area. I do not see, given the traffic control and the positioning of the traffic and the condition of this corner on the apartment corner, I don't see a way to designate that as a travel path.
Even with traffic controls, walkway lights or whatever, even if
No.
the people have to pause for the light up at the corner
No,
to cycle?
that's not constructed properly to designate a path through there. The way the island is positioned, the stop bar for the traffic is in this location.
There is a painted crosswalk there now.
There's one painted crosswalk.
Right across, correct.
Yeah, that's the only,
Right.
that leads to an inaccessible corner.
It leads to nowhere right now.
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, actually, it leads to a dumpster.
Correct.
All right. What about 90 degrees to that going across?
90 degrees to
No,
that,
yeah.
You're in the middle of an island in a mid-block situation. You're not,
Slightly towards, no, the other way. Coming across from that
right here?
the northeast corner of the parking lot. There, what about right there going straight across? Fully visible. And even if you put some kind of walkway controls in there.
Thank you.
That would have to be discussed. The
We
jug
put stop signs there
the
now?
jug handle traffic has the right-of-way coming up through here. The jug handle traffic does not
That's
stop.
correct.
So that's not a stop situation unless you change something.
When you come off, there's no stop on the jug handle. The stop signs are on Main Street.
Yes.
Here.
Okay. So let's put a stop sign there.
Well, that would be the simple thing.
Let's put a stop sign there. Let's hook up some kind of a traffic device there to the
But I
control.
mean, in reality, what happens now, people just go that way anyway.
Pretty fast, too.
And quite frankly, I don't think you want to force everybody, if you fence everything, you don't want to force everybody to Hackensack Avenue.
No,
Because it's the turnpike.
Yeah.
Really, you want to get people as close as possible. And again, my suggestion was eliminate the 2 parking spaces you're going to build on site.
Right.
Don't spend the money. Put in the ramp and use the parking lot that the state ultimately bought Pizza Town for and utilized.
I still think you need to study that corner more.
And as far as the dumpster,
Well,
you're going to dig under the dumpster because that's where you're putting your sanitary
Well,
sewer. You can move the
I would
dumpster.
suspect that dumpster's going to serve other people. All right. Your carry in, carry out's going to wind carrying out net to that dumpster, but that's another thing. Let's look at this crosswalk.
But I think you
I
want
want
to
to
go
see you explore closer how we can put that walkway in that corner. Engineers can do most anything.
Given enough money.
Well, that was my next thing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
My question is, that's two-way that section, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a functional need to maintain two-way traffic there?
The only functional need I see is coming across on a green from the
Right.
other side of Main.
But you can still get to the apartments through the jug handle. You don't necessarily.
That's correct.
So what I'm asking, I'm just thinking out loud here, if that could be made one way,
Right.
eastbound or westbound.
That's right.
At least then you'll eliminate the cross traffic.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, the only way then to get to the jug handle, I think.
Down Elizabeth Street. No, you can't
No.
cross over there, you gotta go around work.
That's correct.
Yeah.
There's no access to those apartments, other than if you're coming northbound
Well-
on Hackensack Avenue.
Correct.
Well, that was gonna happen when you eliminate the jug handle anyway.
That's true?
No, they were gonna make that.
Yeah.
Well, if they eliminate the jug handle, then you really need Main Street to go east.
No, it was gonna be a light at Grand Avenue to turn into the.
So what- yeah.
I have the plans if you wanna see them, they're sitting on the desk.
It's not gonna happen, so.
No, the county, right now, there's no funding for it, so that was probably a probably today a $4.5 million project. So, I think we're talking about 2 ramps and some paint on a street, and possibly a stop sign.
At that
At that corner.
Yes.
No, I'm saying, at the north,
Yes.
the northeast corner of the parking lot. That's where people are going now.
They're gonna go there anyway.
No, that's where they're going now.
All right.
So who has the authority to
Yeah.
get the stop sign at the jug
I
handle?
want it up in that corner.
Before you enter Main Street? Doesn't count.
And ladies, they're gonna go right there, there's a crosswalk there now.
Mr. Costa, was that envisioning a diagonal crosswalk as discussed, or what you just stated?
I think your best bet, honestly, is to go across just go straight. Straight across.
Put a piece of concrete
Not
walk there next
90
to
degree, where I indicated 90
Where
degrees.
we indicated.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what people are doing now.
Sure.
I think that's your best bet.
Have you done any traffic counts or anything?
I did not do traffic counts.
Okay,
no.
so we don't know how much traffic is really coming down Main Street from the west.
Very little.
Yeah, that's my point.
And when the train comes in.
That's correct.
The signal's preempted anyway. The signal is preempted, and that goes red. So every time there's a train that comes through there, there's no movement on that jug
Right.
handle.
What about adaptive signal? That which links with that, so to stop the cars from making that swoop around the corner.
Once again, in reality, I think we're gonna take the shortest distance, and that's that corner.
Again, if you eliminate the 2 parking spaces on site, the money saved there certainly can offset the cost of 2 ramps.
And how many,
Then you don't put asphalt in front of the building. You don't have the asphalt parking lot, which I think takes away from the whole thing. I mean, you're building all of this for 2 parking spaces.
any other comments from the board members? No resident parking experts, all right.
The other issue with, I have a question about, going back to those 2 spaces, and Robert, or engineer can answer. It's also sort of an awkward movement to come off the jug handle to get into that driveway. Especially when you have that little island there, so.
I don't think you need it. I think it's, again, there's a parking lot there to park for the use of the park. Why spend the money to create something it's going to be difficult to get there in the first place? It's going to take away from the
Do we allow
aesthetic.
parking on that side of the street?
There's parking on that side.
There is parking on that side of
On the
the
north
street,
side?
no, on the east side from the jug handle down. By the entrance back, there's parking.
That's
there.
correct, I observed that, both sides.
Yeah. So, and there's no curbs
So there's a
either.
turnaround,
Correct.
right?
It's a pretty
You
big
know, you turn
complex.
around, you can do 2 handicap spaces along the curb if you want.
Right.
Stripe them.
If you had to, you could.
If you had to. I had seen that. But there's no curb there. You'd
No,
have
well, that's
to-
another
you'd have-
issue.
You'd have to put a curb in and some signs. That might make more sense there. All right. Nothing more heard from the board. Mr. Burns, do you have any comments on what we're discussing?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Leave it at that.
Okay. Let's have a motion to open it to the public.
So move. Second.
Okay. All right, we'll follow the same procedure. We'll start front row on Tenny's side.
I think the stop sign is a very good idea at that jug handle, and we can certainly ask the county at the next historic preservation.
Right.
Historic Newbridge Landing State Park Commission meeting to, for them to facilitate doing that as soon as possible.
Okay. All right, well, we're still in the planning stage now, thank you. Anybody else, front row, second row? Third row? Anybody else? No? Oh, come on, Mr. Smith. All right.
I just wanted to add, when you look at, I don't need a microphone, where like historic Newbridge Landing is, we have to envision, we're thinking about the site today, but we have to be thinking about what the site's going to be once the museum building is built. And I think that's what we really need to be focusing on. And Mr. Costa is correct that this parking lot was designed for the state for the use of the Bergen County Historical Society and events at Newbridge Landing. With the museum building being located in this area, it's going to be a magnet that you will be crossing. We want people to cross at the crosswalk. And then you're going to walk through the meadow. And as you walk through the meadow, all your modern intrusions around you, the apartment complex, the different, the traffic, you might hear some people beeping about making a left turn into that, into Main Street. But your focus is going to be onto Newbridge and focus going to the museum building. And that's what that pathway was really designed to do. I actually witnessed this firsthand 2 weeks ago. I had the opportunity to visit Mystic Seaport Museum. And the parking lot is across the street, and you have to cross at a light to cross. And I witnessed families, young and old, all crossing at the light in the crosswalk, because it was clearly defined. And I think that's what we would do here. So I just wanted to share that.
There's no reason why we can't have the proposed one up at the northwest corner and the one in the northeast corner also.
Yeah, this was
So the one people closest to Palisades can cross there, and the people closest to the jug handle will cross where they normally would tend to go.
If you don't have the opening, then there's no incentive to cross.
There's no one's,
But you still have to get, you still have to get to the attraction.
Yes, but if there's no access here, people would have to go to the path.
right. Unless you fence that off and put a barrier.
right.
I use the expression,
There's no way. They won't be able to get
in
in.
Garden State
They don't
Plaza,
get one entrance over there. So they'd have to
people
go that way.
kill
Well,
to get the closest
why
spot
can't we
to the
come
front
this
door.
way?
Yet they will walk for hours in that wall.
Well, we just said we're gonna do something.
If
I'm
there's
wanting
no
him to
barrier,
come back. Well, we get
I
our
have-
own
I
traffic engineer and
doubt.
let him do it.
too many people are going to walk to Hackensack Avenue, cross that crosswalk, and then come in through the meadow. Maybe they do, but every time I've seen activities there, I've seen them going in easterly direction, not west to go east.
Right, and that's a fair point.
And if you put a physical barrier there, I don't know if that really, do you really want a fence around the whole parking lot?
I think that when, in 1955, when the Historical Society gave the property to the state of New Jersey for a parking lot at the student house, in 2011 and 2012, when that
Took it out.
when it was removed, people were like, no way, people are never going to park so, like, a little bit further away. And if you go to other historic sites in New Jersey, like Princeton Battlefield, or Monmouth Battlefield State Park, the parking lot's a little further away, and you're going to have to walk. It's an expectation. And I think that's what people have to understand here, that they'll have that expectation. When the student house was made a state historic site, we actually do have one of the original markers marking Newbridge Landing in the student house as a state historic site. There's very few left, actually, that exist. We do envision actually having some sort of destination in the meadow in the future. So again, it's drawing the public attention to go to that location and then continue on that pathway. We do have an information kiosk as well at that part, at that entrance. So as we continue to update that, again, it provides a destination for individuals.
I think the issue here is choice versus, other locations where my parking lot's far away, I have no choice but to walk to the entrance. Here, there is a choice. When someone gets out of their car in that parking lot, and the shortest distance is heading east, that's where they're going. You know, they don't know the kiosk is up there, they don't know that there's this kind of visual entrance that you create. There's, you know, there's the place I'm going to, that's the direction I'm moving.
Right, and that's true, but again, when I did, as I mentioned, visit Mystic Seaport Museum, they funnel you to that area to cross. Like, so the parking lot's spread out. I could have absolutely with my family throw my son on my shoulder and cut through the street, but we funneled at the safest route that everybody could see. It was clearly defined. And that is, you know, I definitely would concede that when you look at the traffic pattern right now, that you know, it would be helpful to have flashing signs that would delineate crosswalk, et cetera, which don't exist.
May I do the chair? Do you want that little parking lot in front of the new museum? You want that?
With the handicappers.
Is that, I mean, that's your desire to keep that there?
I mean, that would be something that we'd have to discuss.
No, I'm saying, why would you want to lose the aesthetic in front of this
Right.
building? That's what I'm trying to figure
Put
out.
a vegetable garden there. No, I'm serious.
Seriously, for two parking spaces, and not to, you know, not to diminish the value of ADA parking, but you have a parking lot across the street for this use, for the use of the entire park. Why would you do that in front of to basically take away from the aesthetics that you're trying to create?
I mean, I think maybe,
Fine.
Who can speak a little bit to this? First of all, we have to have a driveway entrance here for service, and there's an existing driveway there now. So this is actually an improvement over the existing condition. What's out there right now is crushed gravel, compacted stone, potholes, mud, and it's not an attractive or aesthetic in any way, shape, or form. But the enhancement of the parking area, defining the edges of the entrance is a safety improvement as well as an aesthetic improvement. The parking facility, while yes, the intent was to allow the ADA access directly from those stalls into the parking lot without having to interact with all of these off-site improvements. The screening that's around this is complementary to the aesthetics of the building and the structure. It's a complementary fencing scheme. It's got a wooden gate. I don't agree with your determination over the aesthetics. I don't think this is obtrusive. I think what's out there currently is substantially worse.
Okay. Hold that thought. Because years ago, there was a parking lot at the end of Main Street, which is all the way down by the Von Steuben house, and all of the pavement was ripped out.
Down here?
Because at that time, for aesthetics. So now, fast forward to 2019, the proposal is to build a museum building and put a small parking lot in front of it. I don't get it.
It's really to address the ADA access in an expeditious and safe manner. That was the point of
Instead of just building a ramp, two ramps, go right across the street.
Well,
and
the
you're into
ADA
building.
parking stalls that are striped currently on the existing lot are actually on the western edge of the property.
But you heard the chairman just restripe it. I mean, we're talking about paint.
Well,
Or is there, I don't know if you can you do it? Is it an issue?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's a very valid question, and that is a part of
Right, I understand you don't own the
equation.
property. Maybe that could be an issue, that you're not allowed to do it.
I don't know what their agreement is in terms of what they can and cannot do on that property. That is part of the equation.
The other thought I just had on that is, I don't know if there's still a need to get loading for this building. If that loading need still exists, you're already building all of this pavement.
But that's
And the
gravel.
only- and the-
Once you get in, it's gravel.
The two spots are just, you know,
It's
drop
gravel
off.
from this
It's
point
gravel
forward.
from that,
Mhm.
your service drive is gravel once you pass this.
That's correct.
And the only reason it's not gravel where you have it, it's because of the ADA capability. So,
But also, the turning movements here in the access, this needs to be stabilized regardless. Even if you were to take the ADA spaces away, in order to provide adequate access to the service. This apron would need to be improved anyway, because, as you're aware, it's currently just
I'm saying you can,
so we would need to have this
we're not adverse
stabilized
to turning
anyway.
into concrete. If you go on the other side of the bridge, when New Milford did the improvement, they took it, they sprayed an aggregate on top of the pavement to make it look a little more
Rustic?
like a historic look to it. They basically took pavement and put gravel.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think we're both saying the same thing. Something needs to be improved there regardless.
All I'm saying is, and I'm gonna cut myself off, because I'll keep going all night. Once you put a microphone in my hand, it's a deadly weapon. But take, my opinion to this board, take that, those garbage spaces out. Keep it green, keep it something else, and just put the two spots, or if they exist on the other side of the street, leave them there. Save the money. Make the entry look a little bit nicer. I know you're saying, to me, it just, I know what they did at the end of the street. I don't know why you would create it at this part of the street.
Still worried about that.
Because once you get there, why do you want to introduce cars there?
Again, that was to address.
No, I understand what you want.
Of ADA accessibility.
So this guy's gonna study that corner. All right,
But again, that's up to the board. Just,
all right,
again,
you're approaching my bedtime. Any other comments from the board members? Are we still open to the public? Do we close that?
No.
No, okay, so let's close the public, if there are no other. Okay. So, any other comments from the board members? How do the board members feel that the applicant do some further study of that corner, with crossing and the handicap parking and everything else? So we will pretty much in agreement? Anybody opposed? No, all right. I think you got your marching orders. All right.
Can we give preliminary approval so they can proceed with the DEP permits?
Well, we still gotta hear other witnesses, and let's see what happens. You wanna ask him for the...
Mr. Barrett, you referenced, or there was reference in the course of the testimony, the parking agreement. I'd like to see a copy of it, please. Could you send that over to me?
Not the letter, the whole agreement, no?
Is there an actual written agreement?
No.
So only the letter?
Correct. The lot is under the, as I understand it, the jurisdiction of the historic, I won't get the name right, the Park Commission, which is established by legislation, by the state, giving them the authority to use this parking area and to allow it to be used. They voted, the commission voted to allow the Historical Society to use the parking lot, which they've been using anyway. But it was formalized in a resolution adopted by the commission itself.
Send me that resolution, please.
I'll get a copy.
Good. All right. You'll call Mr. Barrett. Who's your next?
Mr. Dassing, our engineer.
This is
architect, sorry.
You don't want to be a landscape architect? No? You're saving the architect for last, is that it?
We just thought that it was...
No, that's okay.
Because we needed some questions about the material.
Yeah, that's... Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Eugene, E-U-G-E-N-E, last name Dassing, D-A-S-S-I-N-G.
And please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Could you provide us with your credentials?
Of course, I'd be happy to. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in architecture from NJIT. I graduated in 2009 and 2010. I'm a registered architect in the state of New Jersey. I received my license in 2015. I am currently employed as a project manager at G3 Architecture in Elmwood Park. My primary focus is on interiors. However, I do work on ground-up projects from time to time.
You've testified in Bergen County before?
I have not testified in Bergen County. I've testified in Hudson County before North Bergen and Jersey City, and I've also testified in, I believe it's Union County in front of Linden.
But you're an architect, not an engineer. You're testifying as an architect.
I'm testifying as an architect.
Oh, okay. We've been waiting for you. Go ahead, we'll listen.
Okay.
Tell us about what you're proposing.
You'd like to see the color.
I know it's a bit of a late night at the moment, so I'm going to try to. You all have this in front of you. This I'm going to mark in as A3. Entitled Bergen County Historical Society, New Museum and Event Building. The building itself is a timber frame structure. The timber frame is actually being produced by a company in Connecticut, being purchased as a kit by the Historical Society individuals. I'd first like to say that I am more than thrilled to be working on this project. This is a great thing for me. It's a great thing for Bergen County, and we're very happy to be a part of it. The primary function of the space will be as a museum, which I believe you heard as an exhibit gallery, and the other primary function as well as the storage of the collection materials. As you heard earlier this evening, the building is a total of 2,331 square feet in footprint. It's 2 stories. The lower story features an exhibit area, meeting room, restrooms, associated support utility spaces. The upper level will be used for climate-controlled collection storage, and as Jim and Deborah mentioned, the Society is in desperate need of climate-controlled storage for their collections, so that's what's going to be going on the upper level. As I mentioned before, the primary structural frame is going to be a timber frame, which is being designed by a company in Connecticut. The exterior walls we are endeavoring to construct in as energy efficient a manner as possible to facilitate the climate control of the interior space. We've gotten into a fair amount of this evening, but the entire interior of the building is going to be ADA compliant. We're going to feature an ADA accessible roof. We're going to feature ADA accessible restrooms as well as ADA accessible entrances and exits to the building. The exterior of the building features a large deck in the front here. It facilitates the indoor-outdoor connection between the interior exhibit and the outside of the building. It also functions as a space to hold events, to hold outdoor gatherings, and things of that nature. The height of the building is 34 feet from the grade plane to the ridge. The exterior materials that we've selected for the building are fiber cement panels. It's going to be a board and batten system, something most likely hardy board or something along those lines. I can't speak to the actual manufacturer. We haven't gotten into that level of design yet, but we're looking at something that's durable, easy to maintain, things of that nature. The interior design, as you can see on your rendering, at the moment we are trying to keep a clean and simple aesthetic. We are introducing track lighting for flexibility of exhibits. When exhibits move around, we can reposition light heads, things like that. We also have a few, obviously, windows and doors to let in some exterior, some outside lighting. There was a question, I believe, that arose earlier about the occupancy of the building. The lower level as an exhibit space, the code allows, I believe it's 30 square foot net. So we're anticipating an occupant load somewhere in the vicinity of around 50 people on the lower level. The upper level as a storage space is about 300 square foot net. So we're anticipating only 2 to 3 people upstairs. There is a meeting room on the lower level, which we, as you heard, the society hosts meetings on a fairly regular basis. So that space we're thinking somewhere in the range of 50 to 20 people every so often. Sorry, just one moment. The building does not, by code, the building is not required to be sprinklered. We are still exploring the pros and cons of sprinklering the building, and we will get into that as we get into the design a little bit further. But for code, we're not required to have a sprinkler building. I also believe there was a question earlier about the foundations of the building. My client had a soil report done in 2017. There are soils underneath the building that are subject to subsidence. So our geotech engineer, and we're exploring a number of different options for this, but the geotech engineer is recommending a pile supported foundation, which is either going to be a helical coil or a wood timber pile. It's obviously, it's going to be a cost implication, so we're really going to be looking into that with some level of detail.
Yeah. So the poles you show on your rendering basically are decorative rather than a pole, a true pole.
You're referring
foundation.
to the interior, or?
Yeah, no, somewhere I saw, maybe it was on another drawing, I thought I saw some poles.
Are you referring to the columns?
No, those are columns. Oh, I saw poles. Guess not. Okay. Withdraw the question.
Fair enough.
Continue, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, more or less, I've kind of covered the main aspects here. So if there are further questions, I'd be happy to address them.
So there'll be no public access to the second floor?
No, not as planned currently.
And for the downstairs portion, is it intended to stay open like this, or they're going to make it up into, I mean, is it going to be like a flexible kind of exhibition space? Or
Yes.
there's no permanent cases or displays?
I would default to endeavor to discuss the actual exhibit design.
Yes, because there's not a lot of open floor space to get that.
Correct. So I believe that the idea is that it's going to be flexible exhibition space, and that will move and shift as the collection demands.
That's sufficient for. Thank you.
If there's no requirement for sprinkling, do that, is the fire detection system have to go in, or?
Yeah, there will be a fire alarm system. We're going to have to provide horns and strobes, pole stations, things of that nature. There will be a fire alarm. The question really about sprinklering is the weighing the pro and con of life safety versus potential safety collection.
I also think we're going to ask this to go over to our fire department and look at the site in terms of how they would approach it, and where the hydrants are and the distances. Let them put their comments together for us also.
Understood.
Are you planning, I don't see a kitchen or anything like that. Are you planning any cooking or food preparation or food sales? Right now, last I heard you had outdoor cooking.
That's what the demonstration.
That was demonstration.
We could have a catering kitchen in that
Oh, you could,
meeting area.
but it wouldn't be on-site prep.
In that meeting area, there's a table.
The meeting room I'm talking.
Could be a multi-purpose room.
Could be a multi-purpose.
Catering kitchen for like a fundraising event and so forth.
All right.
But that would be.
But now you'd have to.
So we do show, there is a small pantry that's shown in there, which would serve primarily meetings.
In the corner, all right.
But if there was a larger event,
You're not going to have a stove.
right? There's no on-site cooking.
Okay.
All the food will be brought in.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
What I see right now, this is one of the first attractions that did not exit you through a gift shop. Are you? Well, do you? And if so, where would you be putting your gift shop? Do you plan on?
Currently, we have a gift shop in the Campbell Christie House.
Oh, we have it over
with
there.
a tavern, so people can get a bite to eat in there.
Okay.
You know, and then they buy stuff at our gift shop. Yeah.
All right. So there's no gift shop planned right now for here. It's a moneymaker. Any other board members in the meantime have any questions? No?
I just
I have one quick one.
Go ahead.
Again, same with landscape architecture, just, again, historical sensitivity, I understand as a kid, so you only have so much flexibility.
Right.
One example would be, I think you have 4 other buildings on site, this has vertical siding, they all have horizontal siding, so just take a look at what's there, try to match that up as best you can. Stone bases, they're all red, this is blue, maybe you want it to stand out as a different color, maybe you don't, just, again, try to get as close as you can to what's there.
Mr. Barrett, who addresses the signs? The architect? What, well, I guess we would like to hear about any proposed signage.
Be in conformity with the ordinance.
That's not an answer. So you still have to determine your signage, where, what it says, where it's located, everything. Size.
Mr. Chairman, respectfully, I don't believe the ordinance requires that. The ordinance.
Well, all right. So we, the board, would like to see it. How's that?
We don't have any proposals yet.
Well, okay. I would like to see, at least, and I'm sure other board members would like to see, I'm sure you're going to have at least one sign at the entrance of some kind, and maybe several others. Please show us what you usually submit, the proposed signage, its location, whether it's going to be lighted or not, whether it's a ground sign, a post mount, or whatever.
Okay.
No? So, that's the architect's responsibility?
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Okay. Certainly not me, because I can only draw stick figures.
Well, facetiously, architects have crayons, okay, and they make nice drawings, okay.
We'll figure it out.
Finger paint.
Okay, I'm gonna assign the signage to him, all right. Nothing else on the board here? Let's go to the public, motion?
So move. Second.
All right, boy, we're trained. All right, first row. All right, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, first row, Kenny again. Second row. Third row? Nobody even in the fourth row, huh? Okay, motion to
close.
Motion, second over there?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. You might make it. You got your engineer now?
We do, but, we need to be more to answer questions, because we've,
I just think it's very easy, please go on the record for the sanitary and stormwater, that's all.
sorry?
You should go on the record with regard to sanitary and stormwater.
Sure.
Okay.
My name is Christopher Soleil. I work for Menlo Engineering Associates, located at 261 Cleveland Avenue in Highland Park, New Jersey. I received a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Rhode Island in 2008, and I've been a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey since 2013. And I have testified in front of multiple boards in mostly Middlesex County, but also Hudson County, Somerset County, and Monmouth County.
Please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you want to keep this?
I have one more. You can have it for your file. Go ahead.
You could describe to the board how you design the sanitary sewer?
All right, so I guess the only remaining engineering is the utilities. What the applicant is proposing are an electric service, a water service, a gas service, and then the sanitary sewer service, which will actually be a force main, forced by a grinder pump or a small pump station off of the east side of the proposed facility that will connect to an existing manhole across the street within the property of the Steuben Apartments. It's a gravity sewer at that point, which will be picked up and conveyed to downstream water treatment facility. The stormwater management is collected on site via catch basin and collects the roof runoff from the proposed facility. It's stored and detained in an oversized 24-inch pipe. There's an orifice at the downstream inlet, which then controls the flow leaving the site to reduce runoff for the 100-year, the 10-year storm, and actually meets the existing for the 2-year storm before connecting into the existing stormwater system within Main Street before it's discharged then into the Hackensack River. We actually, by disturbing only a half acre and increasing impervious by 3,000 square feet, we actually don't trigger any stormwater management requirements. But in working with the board engineer, we did provide that detention and reduction of runoff rates leaving the site.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, a couple of quick questions. Well, we're looking at the force main. And I know Mr. Costa's earlier first comments asked for a little more information on that. There's a manhole out in Main Street, in the middle of Main Street, pretty much near where your line is going to be crossing, your proposed line. PSE&G. And I suspect that that's some kind of an underground feeder that was coming out of the prior substation. Have you looked into that street lines? Have you done a mark out of what's in the street?
No, we have not at this time.
Do you intend to?
It's part of the site plans. We have the one-call system notification on the plans where that existing services will be marked out. But with the force main, if there are any conflicts within the street where we have to cross existing utility services, we can go above, underneath, and tie into the existing manhole.
Don't you think you should check that out a little bit? Because that could have been a heavy-duty line coming in there. I don't think it was an oil stack, but it could have been a pretty big line, which means you had a pretty big interference, which means that you might have to be talking with PSE&G about either eliminating it, going under it, and it might even change your profile.
Okay.
I really suggest that you look at that.
Okay.
I don't know what Mr. Costa's comments necessarily were all, but when I looked at your first submittal, I didn't see a check valve on that sanitary. You're hooking into a line, you might want to consider a check valve.
Okay. We'll certainly look into that.
What protection of that force line are you proposing in terms of encasement as you run, or protection as you run under the road?
Right now, it's just a 1 1/4-inch PVC Schedule 40 or Schedule. I'd have to actually look at the plan to see what schedule it was, but it's an existing, or it's a proposed PVC force main, typical.
You contemplating putting protection on that, like encasing it in concrete or anything like that?
We don't show that proposed currently, no.
Don't you think you should?
I think with the showing it at the appropriate depths, I think it's standard crossing a roadway that it would just be a PVC pipe.
The bedding is okay, but given the soft soils, if you're using Schedule 4, you may want to step in.
We could certainly look into proposing that.
I wouldn't even use Schedule 4.
Yeah.
I would use HDPE.
I know. Something that's something,
yeah.
We're not talking, but you can go with stronger.
These are hose.
Why don't... You folks are showing a new transformer.
Yes.
And when I looked at the first set of plans, it looked like you were proposing to come from Main Street underground to the transformer.
Yes.
Right now, you got a pole line coming in the same alignment. Why do you want to take up all that soil with the potential environmental condition you might have under there?
I mean, I think it's cleaner having an underground service. It's something that we'd work with the, utility company.
It's up to you. You might want to save a couple of dollars and not expose. Because of that junk guard, I'm not certain what you're going to find under that soil surface.
No further actions. Should have been no further action letter on that, so it shouldn't be an issue. We never built on it.
Same thing with, okay. Now, you heard us discuss the parking lot and the crossing with the traffic engineer. I think we're looking for a layout of that parking lot across the street. So from an engineering standpoint, you're involved also.
Yes.
I hope he's your buddy, because you got some work to do over there, and you're going to have to do some work with Mr. Costa on that.
Right.
And I believe that we originally were talking about restriping what's there now. Consider moving the handicap over there, and looking at your egresses. You might wind up with some aprons or whatever. So you folks have got to work out what's going on across the street there.
Certainly.
What else have we got? So you got to... Are you doing the site lighting, or is the lens, okay, all right. Gotta work together as a team.
We do.
We got an entrance there that needs a lot of attention. Any comments, board members?
Question on storm. You're tying that storage pipe into that 18-inch line that's on Main Street. That goes directly to the river, correct?
Correct.
Do we know, or do we, I can probably guess that during high tide, that line might be inundated. So does it make sense to even have that storage and maybe just have sheet runoff going right into the street?
We had originally shown that, and were requested to provide the additional storage, so we complied.
Because the invert's only like 6 inches different. So.
Yeah, I think that you're right, that the pipes flood. I think it provides some additional storage for any on-site runoff.
I guess it's something we can look at later, but...
Should there be a backflow preventer on that?
Well, not on the storm. Well, there's supposed to be a tide gate. The tide gate's another issue. That's the county.
That's what the Historical Society is trying to get done.
The county's, yeah. That might be a better solution, so we can get that fixed rather than...
Board members? That's the way I feel. It's past my bedtime, yeah. That's why we set a 10:30 curfew.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the public. We got a motion and a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. First row again. Let's go through the drill. Second row, third row, fourth row. Oh, okay, let's go. You're representing...
I'm a school teacher, so
okay.
I do it for my full-time position, so I have to be up very early tomorrow. But I will just say, to add to that last comment, the Historical Society, through the Historical Representing Park Commission, has been working and trying to work with the county to put a tidal flap at the area in front of the student house. And that is a lot of the issue where when water comes into the site, that you have something we like to refer to as sunshine and flooding, that the tidal flap isn't closed entirely. So when the tide rises, it actually backs up and drains all the way through the area. So through the commission, the county of Bergen has consulted an engineer, and they're still developing plans to solve that issue. It's part of a larger component, for sure. but we're definitely trying to address the individual process from it.
We haven't heard much from the public. Now's your chance if you want to say anything. Okay, great.
Thinking these are people who support the project.
No, yes, I gather that, but, you know, hey, they're here, give up for them. Okay, so Mr. Barrett, you've got some work to do?
Yeah, could you sum up so that we don't miss anything?
I'll tell you what I got. And I got the traffic engineer, and we just said in conjunction with your engineer and Mr. Costa are going to work on that crosswalk. You folks are going to prepare a drawing of the parcel across the street with the parking.
You just want to show that you got a traffic.
Well, there's going to be some kind of work over in that corner wherever the crosswalk is. Yeah. So you're going to need that, yeah. I don't believe you don't have to show the wooded area, but the paved area, right? And ingress and egress, you might want to delineate that. You've got to do something on signs, locations, especially for that parking field, and your main sign or signs for the attraction and the site. Mr. Costa, did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it.
I will come on.
Show the striping or restripe.
Oh, yes, you are going to work on the entrance lighting when you look at that entrance. I think you might want a street light there of some kind. Like native plantings?
Yeah, they said they would do that.
Okay.
I know, they asked for a copy of the resolution.
Yes.
We need the resolution?
And that letter that you referred to, Counselor.
Right. What did I miss?
We're going through it now.
Well, we'll think about it as we fall asleep, yeah.
What I can do is, if there's anything that we missed, I can reach out to
Yeah,
Mr.
okay.
Barrett.
Okay. Time extension. Don't wave your head, say yes so we can get it on the record.
Okay.
Can I ask it in a legal way?
You bet.
Does the applicant extend all timeframes for this board to act?
Yes, they do.
When are we carrying this to so we can make it?
Well,
Melanie,
can we?
wait until the first meeting in June? Would that give us enough time? Do you want to say that now or not? Well, it's not attainable. I don't think it's attainable. So middle of June? So, 45 days. Whatever the second meeting in June.
That would be June 19th. My calendar's right.
That's correct.
Wednesday weekend, isn't it? No, that's the middle of the week.
It's also June 2nd. So June 19th?
Yes.
All right.
All right, for anybody that's here this evening on this application, Bergen County Historical Society, 1201, 1209 Main Street, Block 1303, Lot 2, and Block 1304, Lot 2, is being carried to June 19th, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. in these chambers. You will not receive any further notice, and the applicant has extended all statutory timeframes for this board to act.
Thank you, Mike.
That's it, Mr. Barrett. Yeah. Okay. Anything else the board wants to bring?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
So
Do I hear a
moved.
second?
Second.
I guess we need a roll call, or can we just say aye?
Aye.
All right. Answer that question. Mr. Barrett, we made 10:30, it's about 10:34.
Oh,
Somebody's in a hurry.
I did not sleep well last night, so I've been up since 2:30.